What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Binge Empire, Bingetown TV's sci-fi, fantasy, and maybe more podcast. So this is our coverage of season 3 of The Wheel of Time. Obviously, we are here to talk about episode 8, the finale. We are not 8 weeks later, what it ends up being, maybe 6 weeks later, because Amazon drops 3 at a time, but it has absolutely flown by, if I may say so myself. This episode is titled He Who Comes with the Dawn. So if you're watching on YouTube, you're seeing this early. We are back to the 4 of us. So we missed Luke last week for episode 7, Golden Eyes, but we got the whole squad here today. And if it's your first time listening, you've never interacted with our content before, basically the way that we do things here is that me and Luke my name is Kyle. Me and Luke are the book readers. So we'll kind of be providing that type of perspective on the podcast. But really, the main event here is going to be we're joined by Dave and Paul. They are show only watchers. So they have no idea what's to happen. They don't have any of these preconceived notions or biases of characters and all that stuff that me and Luke might come to the table with. So they will be our main entertainment, and then me and Luke are here to kind of maybe answer their questions, provide a little context, and then also obviously supplement some things with our own opinions. And then lastly, before we get into it, the last little piece of housekeeping is just a description of how we do things here. So we take things by setting / storyline. So the way this episode will go is we'll talk about everything that happens in Tanchico, and then we'll talk about everything that happens at the White Tower, and then we'll talk about everything that happens in the Aiel Waste. And that's just makes it easier to have the conversations. We're not jumping back and forth between characters and plot lines and all that stuff. Obviously, we are aware that the Siuan and Moiraine emotional scene at the end is very interwoven and there's a lot of symbolism there. But just to make things easier on us and the conversation, we'll talk about them separately. And then at the end, obviously, we'll talk about them kind of together as we talk about Moiraine and the Waste. But all right, without any further ado, let's say we can jump right into Tanchico. So I have kind of almost this like pre-gamey-esque scenes here where it's just Liandrin gets this gift from Moghedien. She's heading to the Panarch's palace. And then we have Mat and Nynaeve kind of eating noodles and such. Not a ton there, but this is our first, maybe not our first, but a fairly significant Moghedien and Liandrin interaction. So I wanted to give the time to talk about that if needed.
Yeah, Liandrin to me, I don't know if you guys are seeing this as well or if it's supposed to be like this, but she seems like she's kind of like unraveling a bit. Like she seems like a little bit less like upkept or a little more unkempt, I guess. Like I guess when she was in the tower, everything has its place. You have your uniform, your hair's done. I think just she's seemed more like frazzled and a little crazed with everything else going on. I think we kind of learn a little bit about why, probably because the stakes are high of what she wants to do, and she's like stressing. But it's crazy because she was always so calm and put together, and she had like plans in the back of brewing when she was in the tower. But now she's kind of like panicked and just like looking over her back all the time. So it just feels like this season is just she's been so different. But yeah, I thought it was hysterical. She runs up and she's like, dude, stop playing with that ter'angreal. Like, that's literally one of the strongest weapons in the world, and you're playing with it like it's a toothpick. So, did we know her before? I didn't recognize her.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I'm going to probably mispronounce her name, but Jean Cada. So she kills the 2 warders in episode 1 outside of the hall. That's really the other. She gets brought up a couple times this season. She's changed her hair. She didn't really have that white swoop.
Yes.
And that shorter hair. She didn't have the bob, which is all the rage now.
She was the one that Min lied about in the vision, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And I think I agree 100% about the Liandrin stuff with the way that she looks. It feels, I mean, maybe it's also the humidity of Tanchico and that it's not great for the type of hair she has. Maybe that's the angle there, but I also agree that it seems like it's a very visual thing that they're telling us.
I think the dynamic of the Black Aja is very interesting in a way too, because they're aware that Liandrin killed the other Black Aja, and when she comes in looking for, I forget her name, I'm already forgetting all their names,
Naomi.
but she's looking for, they know that she's killed Naomi and they're looking for the other one, Ispin
Yep.
And they are just so casual about the fact that Liandrin has killed her, and they doesn't seem to affect them at all. So I think that dynamic is very interesting. That I guess they kind of expect this kind of betrayal within the Black Aja. They are working for the dark side, so makes sense in that dynamic. I also think that it was funny that Matt was struggling with the chopsticks because he just learned how to speak the old tongue from one of his old, reincarnations or one of the past warriors. I'd feel like one of the warriors would at least know how to use chopsticks. I feel like they could have definitely incorporated that into this scene here with Matt being like a professional with chopsticks, maybe. Just like acting at first, maybe he didn't know how to use them, and then all of a sudden realizing like, oh man, I know how to use these.
I didn't think of that. That actually would kind of fit, and it would be, I don't want to say in line with Nynaeve, but her getting frustrated and saying the line, "Why is nothing a fork?" Because that line was hilarious.
Yeah, I like that line.
I definitely could have
like
seen it be
line.
flipped.
I don't have much to add for this opening piece, but I will talk a lot about this ter'angreal later. It's one of my favorite things that the episode did. It's going to be so fun to break that down in the later scenes. And also just shout out Moghedien. I think she was in this scene, right, when she delivers the armband to Liandrin. And she's just, I loved her this episode. I thought she did a great job. I'm going to be praising her pretty much all the way throughout, but I'll leave it there for now.
Are we supposed to just assume that Moghedien is using compulsion and nobody is going to ask her about her black fingertips? Because
yeah, definitely.
That's a little suspicious. And I feel like Liandrin just has to be under some type of spell to not even question it.
That's my headcanon.
Yeah, I guess I'm not entirely sure. Although Tanchico is a weird city, so maybe it's not totally out of place, but I think any type of headcanon works there for the explanation of that.
I also kind of had like a small question about compulsion, but I don't think you guys can give me the answer because like a scene later on, like Moghedien can tell that Samael has a shield tied off on him. Like if somebody's being compulsed, is there any way for somebody to see the weaves or just sense that compulsion's being used on them? I don't know if that's an answer you can give.
I would say the answer is yes.
Okay. So
it feels like it ties into what Naomi was doing with her mind eraser, weaves that she was bending earlier this season. Feels like it'd be one and the same almost.
It definitely will matter how, let's say, learned you are and things like that. But at some level, you are placing a physical weave into someone's body. So it is visible in a way, let's say. Right. So you could tell if you were looking for it, if you had the time, all that stuff.
Cool.
All right. So the next part of this is actually really going to be nearly the whole conversation in that we move to the Panarch's palace. So we're all kind of racing to find the collar at this point, and they kind of show up in the two different groups, but we all kind of split off within the palace. So I think we can break it into three different conversations. So I have it as Matt and Min, and then I have it as Elaine and Tom, and then Nynaeve and Liandrin. I think we can let's just do Elaine and Tom first, because it's a little bit of a warm-up. Luke wants to talk about the ter'angreal. So we can do that stuff first. And again, it bounces well off the compulsion angle as well. So I have it as kind of two aspects here. Two basically big things that happen. First one being that Tom reveals to us that Gabriel isn't a real person. Not reveals to us, but reveals to Elaine that Gabriel's not a real person. And then the second thing being the battle with Jean. I think we can just talk about the whole Tom Gabriel aspect before we kind of get into the action part as well. Because I know we've talked about this a little bit, and it was talked about in our YouTube comments a lot, but I think that this all worked very well. It's a very organic way for this reveal to come out in universe.
Yeah, I think we were talking about it back when Tom got reintroduced in episode 6 of we loved the introduction to his backstory of him being a part of the royal court of Andor. We thought that was a great little touch that they added in the moment. And here it's really paying off. And it makes me even take things a step further because I was watching with my roommate Alki, and he's just sitting there and he's screaming, "Father, is that her father?" And I'm just like, no, it's not. And then he's like caressing her face and really like looking at her. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, you know what? Tom could be the father a little bit here. There's no way for me to confirm that, but I definitely was getting those at least fatherly vibes from Tom. He described the story of how Elaine, tore down all the clocks back in the castle and she would try and put them back together, just alluding to how Elaine was always so curious and so intelligent, which we love. We love Elaine. Definitely a phenomenal episode for her. But this is great. It definitely makes me feel like there is more for Tom's character. And if he ends up being Elaine's father, that would be a great twist. That's all I really have to say. This was a really touching. I love the relationship that these, even though it's kind of been Elaine's never been aware of Tom really, but Tom is very aware of Elaine. The relationship is just so awesome, and I love watching them together on screen this episode.
Yeah, I felt like the first conversation these two had on screen together, it was like, oh my God, he's your dad vibes. Because like you said, he was like, I remember when you were little, you took apart all the and immediately then you're like, oh my God, how did I not think about that when they were on the table singing together? Of course she can sing.
Right. Yeah, the musical vibes.
His daughter, and he's a gleeman, so she'll get the pipes passed down. He said he spent time in Queen Morgase's court. I like the breadcrumbs were there, but
physically in her court.
we just didn't put it together. Not that it was simple to put it, but this one it was just so obvious right off the bat. So definitely interesting. Kind of like I assume he was just a gleeman in the court and ended up hooking up with the queen, and I don't think that would make Elaine like a quote unquote bastard like child, but I don't know if that doesn't really play into it though, right? Because it's just like
I think he had to be more than a gleeman, because he also talks about how he knew the entire court before Gabriel even arrived, and he would have known of this Gabriel. Well, I guess he still could have been a gleeman. Yeah, I guess still, but it felt like the way he was delivering it, it was more than just that role. But I understand where you're coming from, and that he was at least always around her, it felt like.
So, Paul, you are talking in a way that you feel like it's a definite that Tom is her dad, and Dave feels classically Dave, slightly non-committal about fully diving in and saying and putting that on the board. I'm just curious if I'm getting that right there.
I mean, definitely on the fence towards the beginning of this, but at the end of their part of this episode, Tom says, "I made a promise to your mother," and there it was like, all right, that almost feels like it's confirmation, unless he's like an uncle and his brother. Yeah, put it on the list. Put it on the list. Could be like curveball, and he's not actually, but it just felt like it was a slam dunk.
I'll leave the Tom talk and his past alone, because that's going to be something that we're going to explore in further seasons. Cool. But one of the things that really came to my head was, how does Elaine, just blindly trust what Tom's saying when he's telling her that Gabriel was compulsing the whole family, right? It doesn't exist. Why would she not be able to take the logical leap and think that he could also be doing the exact same thing, or at least spinning a wheel where there's no way to validate anything that he's saying, because she literally doesn't remember Tom. She was too young. Thought that was interesting that he didn't convince me enough, but I get what they were going for. And I thought it's going to play out more and more. And I guess the credibility that Matt trusts Tom is enough for her to trust Tom when he says things like this. But the real thing I wanted to bring up was, I think they absolutely should have left the reveal that Gabriel and Robin were the same person for this moment, and they didn't have to spoil it so early, because when you found out about Gabriel in disguise on screen less than an hour later, was like the opening of the next episode and the reveal's gone. It was still well done and it made sense because Lanfear is the one that drops that knowledge indirectly. But I think this would have been the moment, and it would have made Tom's speech even more impactful, because I'm sure it would have blew both of your guys' mind to find out right now that Gabriel was not actually there his whole life. So I really think that was like a story misstep.
Has he even appeared since that moment too of the actual reveal?
Not until later this episode.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I kind of agree with you even more then, because if they just kind of left that scene out, like that scene was so cool, them all meeting for sure. But at the same time, yes, if we had waited and it was here, it would have felt more rewarding. And my
Right,
crystal ball would
exactly.
have been even fatter, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, you would have been very cocky about it, and it would have been a hilarious moment. But
Yeah.
we'll leave that aside because it's still at the end of the day, it was all just good and it was like part of the story. So I liked how it went down. But let's shift gears over to this Black Aja member that we have here who has this ter'angreal we were just talking about. I guess I just want to pose the question to you guys after this whole confrontation where Tom tries to pull the exact same shit he did in season 1. I'll be the distraction, you leave. Thank God Elaine kind of stepped up and kicked some ass right now with the power. That was a really cool moment because I thought she was going to bounce, but she comes in, saves the day, and then even steals the ter'angreal and uses it. What did you guys take from what they were visually showing us? Because this is one of the coolest concepts of all of Wheel of Time. You could put it up there with how unique the Gray Men were, like, and are. I just think it's one of my favorite things about the Wheel of Time. And how much did you guys take before we really discuss what that actually was?
Well, it was interesting because with this Black Aja member, like when Elaine used it on her, the ceiling like fixed itself and like you almost saw like a ghost of where that Black Aja sister like was standing before. I honestly thought it was the palace. I didn't think it was this ter'angreal, but if that was, I mean, it was really cool in general. It was annoying that the first chick couldn't hit with it after she was playing with it, and Elaine uses it once and just knows exactly what to do and just nails it one shot. She was lying on the ground, so it wasn't tough, but it looked incredible, and I like her. It looked like her soul was like leaving her body, but it was called Balefire, I guess. So leave that in the back of our minds if we see that again.
Dave?
Yeah, I mean, like Paul said, she fires it. The physical body of this chick is burning, but at the same time, we see these lights that appear next to Elaine as if it was her just a second ago. Did they not? They didn't mention like Tom didn't say anything about time, right? There wasn't a quote that was thrown in about anything like that. But my other thought was on the second rewatch, watching it, it felt very similar to what happened to Melindra later in the episode with the soul. It felt like my first watch through, I was kind of associating it with her soul is leaving her body and Elaine is just physically completely destroying her soul and she won't be, reincarnated in the wheel ever again. But you do see the body next to her of the lights. I don't know how to take it. I'll just put it up to something related with time. That's really
Go ahead, Kyle. Explain this bitch because it's the coolest concept ever.
Yeah, so they show us what happens, and they'll get into it at a more academic level, I'm sure, in future seasons. But essentially, Balefire is what is almost become known as like a forbidden weave, in that the effect of Balefire is that when a target is struck with Balefire, its thread in the pattern is destroyed in an amount proportional to the power of the Balefire strike. So that kind of has an explanation there of like Elaine, we know, is super strong in the power. So she is able to wield it and also have that level of impact where
That's
when Jean used it, she's just kind of like shooting the ceiling and nothing really happens beyond like the physical destruction.
Okay, that's how I
But
took it, yeah.
The kicker of what is the impact of being removed from the pattern, how your thread is destroyed, the kicker of that is both the target's existence, so whatever gets hit by Balefire, and their actions up to a certain point are retroactively erased. So the ceiling mends itself because Jane just did that. And since her thread in the pattern has been removed, it's as if that didn't happen.
That's awesome.
It's kind of back to something Kyle brought up in the middle of this season coverage where they don't talk as much about the meta grand idea about the wheel in the Wheel of Time, but this is exactly what that's playing into. Just think about it as a strand. That strand never existed in the wheel, proportionate to how strong the user of the Balefire was back in time. So it's such a cool idea of just burning that person out of existence. They never were there. It's such a really freaking cool idea because, and what you just said, I think is also true where I don't think you get re-spun either in the future, but I don't know if the show's going to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. On the rewatch, I was like, this is eerily similar to how Melindra went out with breaking the Dark Oaths and how her soul entirely was just broken from the weave. And I'm glad that it looked actually for both these these two different, deaths, you could say that they looked similar in a sense as well.
So
And
you
go
could
ahead.
chop somebody's head off, and then if the person that chopped the head off died by balefire immediately after, that person's head would just reattach itself.
Yes.
Correct.
That's just
It's
insane.
it's literally one of the coolest things Wheel of Time came up with. And it's like so forbidden that even Forsaken are questionable. Like they don't just blindly use it. In this case, she's a wild card Black Aja that doesn't really know things. And this is one of the most powerful ter'angreal. She's just willy-nilly using it. But somebody with knowledge of what balefire really is would never have done something like this.
I also want to emphasize that this was probably, besides maybe the Hills of Tanchico, Elaine's coolest
Yeah.
moment, without a doubt, was using this and wielding this. I mean,
She's a baller.
I love her. We'll just say that. I fucking love Elaine. For
The way she just grabs it and then like twirls her hand around the
yeah.
tip, she knows exactly what to do.
Mm.
Was awesome. And I will say that puts more respect on Leandrin's reaction when she walked in and saw her just playing with it. She was like, "Oh my god, like would you put
Yeah.
that down?" Because now that's how strong it is. That is crazy.
To expand slightly too on the like forbidden use of it, even during the War of Power, all the way back in the Age of Legends. So when all of the Forsaken turn and it's Lews Therin and the Aes Sedai at that point, and they're having this huge battle for the fate of the planet, basically, they come to an agreement that's like, all right, no balefire. Like, let's just, no one will use balefire and we'll just fight kind of, let's say, quote unquote, normally. And it's just, so that's the level of respect and danger that they
Yeah.
associate with balefire.
The
And
Mace Windu
up until
weave.
this point, yeah, it's pretty much like a forgotten and forbidden. So the ter'angreal can use it, but at this point, no one can just summon it themselves. And I will say that we talked about it in episode 6, and then I mentioned that because we were kind of making fun of Samael, like he comes in with the hammer and he doesn't really do much. And if you go back and watch the scene where Rand throws up the shield, he is putting out a beam of balefire out of
wow.
the like staff
okay.
/ thing that he has. Like
The
it's
hammer.
this clear white beam that's coming and Rand's just blocking it.
He was going for the kill.
Yeah.
That is way cooler. Makes that scene way more intense. And it also adds the new mechanic that, they were talking about, like with this weapon, I can be at like as powerful. I can become a Forsaken basically, which was nuts. I didn't know you could just, use tools to help you reach a certain level, but hell yeah, that just makes like possible normies all of a sudden could become a threat like way down in the future. So I like that.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that we have the rod, I guess, at this point. We being
I was
Elaine,
going to say, did we
being us.
confirm that Elaine is keeping this as her signature weapon? Because I do not oppose.
Signature weapon, we won't go that far, but it seems like she's smart enough to hold on to it at the very least,
Okay.
So we'll see where that goes. So, and I also, I guess, want to bring up lastly, before we jump off of this, is that Elaine brings up the idea of like delving and how some people can use weaves to like feel the metal ore in the planet. And I only bring that up because we talked last episode about like talents and things like that. Just another example of a talent. Egwene actually in the books has that talent, and that she's like really good at feeling into the earth's crust and like identifying what minerals are in there. It literally doesn't play a big role from my memory beyond that. It just gets mentioned in book 2 when she is a Damane and they're like trying to use her to do stuff, and that's literally it. But I thought it was funny that they even brought it up here.
That's awesome. Broken Earth trilogy. If anybody's read that, it's literally just feels like that.
I'm finishing Lycanius probably somewhat soon, and that Broken Earth is close. It might be the next
I
one.
got all 3 books if you want them.
Really? I have the
one's
audiobook of the first one.
Yeah.
Okay. So moving kind of from ter'angreal, things that are strong, interesting, we can get into, I think, Matt and Min. So mostly Matt here. And so we just have these two are kind of poking around. They find a storage room that seems like it could be the jackpot of what they're actually looking for, but they run into a red doorway and Matt naturally just goes through it because he's reckless to a fault at times. And I would say genuinely somewhat chaos ensues. I'm very curious to hear Dave and Paul of what your takes were on this. I was very apprehensive about how this would all get visualized, so I'm curious what you think.
I want to open this by saying I thought this scene and this character was incredible. I have no idea what the fuck it was, but I thought it was just amazing. It really just threw a wrench in everything. My first thought was also, damn, Matt just gets stuck with these, you know, these like dark entities. Like, granted, the knife was his fault, but you know, he had to overcome that for a while, and now he's meeting this like demon guy. I don't know what his deal is, but a lot of this was probably for me the biggest talking point of the episode. I feel like I could have a lot of comments and questions and quotes from this scene that I feel like it will take up a lot of time, so I'll try and be quick. But yeah, I also liked how at the beginning of the episode, you know, rewatching, Elida appears through this gate at the very beginning of the episode with the 10 years ago, and in the background you can hear the laughing, and that I thought that was a nice touch. It's full circle. But he opens by saying a very long time. Okay, weird. We'll pin in that, you know, later on, and asking Matt repeatedly about what his need is, and we get some comedy out of Matt. He's like, I need the fucking world to not have magic. I need you to leave me alone. You know, I need to leave, all this stuff. Great. And this thing, its name is Eelfinn.
Just to get ahead of it, it is a race of a creature.
Okay, so the race,
and this is known as the foxes, right?
Yeah,
like, is that just the shorthand?
He makes a comparison to the smell of like death and foxes to this thing.
This is, so the foxes are the eel fin, so it's EEL, and then fin. So that's just kind of their jam. And then we learn here too that their kind of role in all of this is that you can go through the doorway, and then they grant 3 wishes, is what the
that's what
do.
Because he does make one of the quotes I had written down. No subtitles, people, I'm telling you, so it's hard. But he says, "You have but 3," and I assumed after hearing that he was referring to you have but 3 wishes. He also is asking this Eelfinn is also asking Matt if he has any iron musical instruments or devices used to make light. So I don't know what his obsession with those are either. And I don't know if having one of those makes this experience a lot more pleasurable rather than being left hanging legitimately. Sorry, I feel like I'm just going on a big tangent, but yeah, just a lot to take away. The Eelfinn was really cool. I heard that they have 3 wishes, asking for a need, and smells like death. That's pretty much the big takeaways. A lot of questions, though. I can't wait to meet this thing again and get the relationship that it has with Elida too, knowing that she walked through this door previously.
Yeah, I think this was like my favorite scene of the finale. It was just so good, and a lot of things you mentioned, Dave, like one of the first things he says, and I think it sounds like the old tongue, no idea what language it is. He says, by ancient treaty, here's agreement made. I didn't know if that meant like some ancient treaty, some deal was made, and now every time somebody comes to me, you get 3 wishes, and it's for everybody. Or if it was the next person that comes due to this ancient treaty, I will grant that person 3 wishes. I want to say it's the first one because Elida was in there 10 years ago in the flashback, like Dave was saying. And if that's the very long time that he was referring to, it would kind of make sense because like it's tucked away in the corner, so nobody would be like finding it easily. But now that I'm thinking about it, this arch was in Tanchico, and the arch that Elida went through is in Tar Valon. So obviously now it makes sense that there is multiple of them, I guess. The room did kind of look like, you know, an octagon. Maybe each side of the wall is a different gate from somewhere else in the world.
Similar to the ways.
Yeah. So I assume now that everybody that comes to this guy gets these 3 needs. He says, what is your needs? He doesn't use wish because that would be too genie-esque. But so first one is what I need is to stop being bollocked about by every magical force on this planet. I'm sick of this one power. And okay, he says done. So what the hell does that mean? Because he was just talking to Min right before that about like, you ever imagine what the world would be like if we didn't have this one power without these visions? So like I don't know if that means he's invulnerable to it now, which would just be so overpowered, or I don't even know. I don't even know. I got to think on it more. Second one being, your memories are erased. It seems like, yeah, he got rid of the screaming battle cries from the horn, but it also seems like he took away some extra memories because Matt can't even remember how he got there. So I don't know if that's going to extend to other people and he's not even going to recognize Rand or something like that. That would be crazy. And then the last need was just to get out of here. And I like how the Eilfin was like, wise to ask leave taking, but unwise to set no price or term. So that was really cool. He obviously was let out, but he was let out on a rope, basically. So that was the vision. That was answered. That was really nice. And then I want to connect this back to Elida, like what was her 3 wishes. Like I guess we can kind of talk more about that once we get to that flashback.
Yeah, we will.
But just absolutely amazing scene here.
This might be, of like this whole season's worth of the podcast, the hardest I need to dance around what I'm saying, I think, like more than anything else we've ever probably talked about, because I don't know how much they're going to change. I don't know how much they're going to touch on this again in the future. But one of the things I really wish that the show did, and I understand that was probably a budgeting issue, was to have multiple of them in there, maybe 3 to each kind of talk through the request, just to kind of clear this up. So, because like Dave, you assumed that this was a character, right? Not like a species of something that's going to be like a magical creature, or whatever, or has its own lore and world building and connection to the Terra Angreal. I don't know how much they're going to do, but I do wish that they had multiple in there. But I will say visually, this looked better than it did in my head when I read the books. And I love the idea of the Eilfin and whatever we have going on here. I think it was really well done. Like it's, of course, a lot longer in the books of what goes on here, but I think they captured it well, and like where it happens, when it happens, all that's different. Again, I'll be hesitant to really comment on a bunch of things, especially like what the outcome of these wishes really is. We can talk about some of the things that we see directly after he leaves, but overall, like this was so cool. I thought the fox looked amazing. Like the sound, the score of everything was like, it had me locked in on the edge of my seat. When Kyle told me he watched the finale before I did, like one of the things that he said was, we're going to see this. And that was the only thing I was thinking about, like going into the episode, was how they were going to pull this off, because it is one of the more fantastical things that the show has tried to do, and make it believable and scary and real with stakes. So I thought it was awesome. It's deeply connected to Matt's storyline for his character going forward. So there'll be callbacks constantly, especially in season 4 when we get more direct aftermath. I thought it was awesome. You guys nailed, like, you guys pretty much have all the quotes pulled. I can't comment on like what actually is going on there. But the one thing I do want to say, and I'm willing to spoil this because it's not really a spoiler, is after the hanging, when he gets saved, like that scar is like a iconic
Permanent.
part of Matt.
Yeah, I feel like I knew that
So
was
that's
coming.
yeah. So that's like a really cool thing. Like a lot of times he covers it up for that reason and stuff. So we're going to see how they tackle that.
I feel like
but
when I watched this scene, I feel like I was instantly transported to the world of the Magicians. Just in terms of like the makeup and everything, just felt like I was staring at something from the Magicians. It was so cool. I completely agree. But I cut you off a little bit. Yeah.
I'm pretty much done. Before I close out and give it to Kyle, shout out to Min for that sick knife throw to save him through the hanging. And also, I didn't bring this up, but shout out to Tom Maryland with the knife throws too, because in his bucket, like he had like 1 or 2 knife throws, didn't do much, but I'm happy they put it in there because that is a very Tom Maryland thing to always just have the ability to chuck knives like that. So both Min and Tom showed some skill, at least in this episode.
I am probably just going to start by saying it's hard to talk about a lot of things because there just will be a lot of butterfly effect, going on from what happens here. I will say that they have definitely changed some things. There's what feels like kind of big one, which again, this feels like a prime example of like, we'll talk about this in 4 years of like, we'll look back and we'll be able to probably dissect a little bit more of like what they were thinking with the changes they made and so on and so forth. I know that people are going to have some issues about what happened here. It's just nice that we're here at this point. It should be the positives to take away from this. Are there some good things coming for Matt's character?
Mhm.
based on the fact that I don't want to say checked this box, but in reality have checked this box on his journey. And I guess I wanted it to maybe be like a little bit darker. I thought it was just like super well lit. I don't know why that was. That's like the smallest nitpick I could ever have, because I agree that like it looked like a Fox person. Like it was pretty cool. And the wishes and the way that they talked and all of that stuff. Like I loved the way and like the kind of power of the situation that just like the Dun was having. And then like you could see how flustered Matt was getting, and where it was like, if you ever like got caught by a genie and were just saying things and they were like done, and it's like, oh my God, I'm using up all of my wishes. Like what the hell is going on type of thing. So I think that like tone was hit really well, and we'll just have to see about what they're thinking with some things that are slightly different.
Let me throw one more thing at you. And this is like a book spoiler for where we're already past that point, just so you guys know, like this all happens in Ruidian. During that storyline, Matt is with Rand the entire time. Like this is when he does his thing while Rand's getting the visions. All of that is happening, and the whole Aiel storyline, that's all like book 4, which is why it's considered probably like the best book of the series by most fans, because this is like one of the most like tone setting and event setting things that Butterfly Effect all the way through book 14. So just keep coming back to like this scene and these conversations when you think of Matt as a character in future seasons, assuming we get greenlit there. But that's just why like book 4 is incredible, because all of this stuff is just happening at the same time. And this is definitely one of the things I think about the most when I think back to the Wheel of Time, is the whole Foxes and like how that plays out. So cool.
Yeah. People were a little bit butthurt. I mean, sure, we're just gonna go with that term of the fact that a lot of things that happen with Moiraine in Ruidian is Matt. So like Matt is the one that drops all of the knives before they go in. Matt is the one that Rand looks for after he comes out of the columns and finds him hanging, and walks out of Ruidian with him. So I think that they made some logistical choices to make Moiraine a bigger character, because she has been kind of top of the billing sheet. I think all in all, it's kind of worked out. But like I said, I still have some reservations about what they're doing.
Remember when I said I was worried about Min, and I like thought she was bad a little bit, and she was the secret agent in the tower, the mole? Yeah, I was wrong, because she saves Matt here. So that's officially in the bucket, and she's a good person. But I just
flirt vibes.
Yeah. And what you guys said, I'm just going to be keeping those 3 things that he said he wished, quote unquote, wished for, just in the back of my mind. And I feel like I could talk about it for like 30 minutes of what potentially like being bollocked about by the one power, what that means. And now he doesn't have to worry about it anymore. So
I think I'm also connecting it to is if he's talking, if one of his wishes is, not having the one power, not being associated with it, maybe part of the reason why he forgot how they got there was because the one power was such a huge part of it. He literally watched someone use the one power to travel there, to use their boat to get faster to Tanchico. And so maybe because that was associated with the one power, he physically actually can't remember how they got there. But I don't know, just theory crafting for that one. But
yeah, I think there's probably 4 like iconic aspects to Matt's character. We're gonna leave out like the Taviran and like luck thing that we've kind of tossed around a little bit throughout the show, but in my mind, I want it to be more obvious. Like we know he's a gambler, but they're not really telling us so much about the way that his luck works. But we're kind of at 50% of these big 4. So we've talked about the scar on his neck. They do a close up here, and that he has a new piece of jewelry that he leaves.
Look like something.
I figured a fox, right?
Did it look like I couldn't tell. It didn't look like a fox to me at all. But thank you.
Just like a weird side head, but
yeah. I couldn't tell. It might have been like tucked in, like a C shape almost. But yeah,
iconic.
There's a couple more things coming too with Matt's character. He's like slowly. But it's just, again, almost maybe similar to the Elaine guess that you're having, Dave, where you want her to keep that ter'angreal. Like we're all moving through the story, and we're like equipping ourselves as we move deeper and deeper. Like Rand has the double dragons now. Perrin is just a beast with his
They're all
axe. So
getting
we're
they're
just
all
like,
getting animals except for the ladies here, because obviously Rand is the dragon. We got Matt now with the fox. Perrin's the wolf. We need some lady animals out here.
Lady animals.
I guess I
don't like that
know
term
how to
at all.
respond to that. I'm not entirely sure how to respond to that, so we'll just move right on about that. Just something we can talk maybe at the end of the episode too, of like what's potentially guesses on the board, things like that for what we want to see next season. All right, so I think that leaves us now with Nynaeve and Liandrin. So this has, like, they were just kind of following each other around a little bit in the palace. So we just see that Nynaeve finds the collar because she kind of knows more what she's looking for, while Liandrin's just throwing shit around to Nynaeve's benefit. And then we have this confrontation that happens outside of the palace. And longtime listeners will realize that maybe part of this conversation was at season 2, Dave and Paul, of them holding out this hope for Liandrin and that she could be someone that comes back to the light, but Liandrin quickly shuts the door on that and Nynaeve, which I thought was narratively satisfying because we've been through this for a season and a half at this point. So it was nice to shut that door. And then we get another kind of, let's say, narrative conclusion to Nynaeve's arc with her being able to channel again. So this is a big conversation and then a big scene in general.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the one note besides before we get into the whole Nynaeve thing is that Liandrin actually, I feel like the bracelets were telling her where the collar was located, right? They were kind of speaking to her, like she closes her eyes, she starts to hear voices. So I'm not it seems like those pieces are all very tightly connected. I mean, we obviously know they all need to work in unison for them to be able to control someone, but it seems a little bit deeper than that. The fact that Liandrin was so close to locating it without actually finding it because she was looking for what the painting looked like versus what it actually looked like, which Nynaeve had that advantage as well due to the whole Domine situation. But so fucking happy for Nynaeve. I mean, this is finally what we were asking for. It's the moment that we've been waiting for all of 2.5 seasons now, 3 seasons fully. And it was so satisfying to watch. It was great to see. I think it's interesting that she was drowning because we had the whole discussion of her with the sea folk. I already forget what their term is. That what that is?
Yep.
Sea folk. And how they were kind of referring to the one power as, watery and, flows through you, and kind of all ties in together here with this scene. My only question is, hopefully now, does Nynaeve permanently have the ability to channel? Like, is she no longer fully blocked anymore? Will she be able to just go out in her daily life and be able to just conjure weaves now? I hope that's the case, because this scene was really awesome for her. The music kicking in, the water looked really great with the CGI splitting in half for her, and her just closing it with its splash. Yeah, it looked amazing. I absolutely loved it for Nynaeve.
It was epic, definitely.
It was epic, yeah.
So a few things about this scene just rubbed me the wrong way. And hopefully you guys can rub me out of it. That's sexual.
I'll rub you out.
Rub me out of it, right? Rub me back the right way. But first of all, before they even go in the palace, all of them gather outside the gate, and Nynaeve says to all of them, specifically Nynaeve says it, if you find it, get out. Don't wait for the rest of us. So why the hell, after Nynaeve found it, is she standing outside that gate waiting for the rest of them? That pissed me off, because I was just like, you're just going against everything you said. You're smart. Now you're just acting dumb. I don't know. Maybe she was waiting for them, hoping they were safe, but whatever. It bothered me. Anyway, I got really excited when this happened. Like, I thought it was really, obviously she needed to be pushed all the way to the edge for her to finally unlock whatever it is, finally remove that blockage of whatever it is. And I thought that key to help her, or if it was the block, it finally getting over it, just whatever, her daughter going through the arches. I thought that was really, really, really nice touch, because it still means something to her, even though technically it wasn't real, if you want to say it like that. So I absolutely love that. But when she blew up and like, this was the explosion of power we're waiting for. It was amazing. It looked awesome. And I was like, all right, get in there and start messing about. But then that's it. And I was like, I feel like we got this before. Like, yes, this is not exactly an explosion of power. It's more controlled. She is manipulating the waves. But I was like, we kind of got this at season 1 when like she exploded and all that other stuff. So I guess I was I was a victim of my own expectations because I wanted her to go in and find Leandrin and do some more because I felt like she did so little and we already got this big explosion of power. But that being said, still looked good. Our hopes for Nynaeve are high and she looked like a badass doing it, except her makeup was like perfect after getting out of the water. And I was like, okay.
Well, I mean, my 2 main comments are directly the same as pretty much what you were bringing up there. Just another piece I'll add to it. Where one, I definitely thought my least favorite part about the entire finale might have been that the Tanchico squad just gets on the boat and leaves after all this. It feels to me that not enough was done, and like I assumed Nynaeve was going to walk out of there and start fighting Leandrin right there on the spot. It felt very anticlimactic. Not in the terms of like her channeling block, which needed to happen. And that is, I'm on record saying that in the books, like probably my least favorite storyline I've almost ever read in fantasy, which is why I hate Nynaeve's book character more than the average person. But I didn't get that bothered by it in the show. Like to this day, I think show Nynaeve is much better than book Nynaeve up to this point. It'll play out, but I think it was very weak. It was the typical season finale of Wheel of Time where it doesn't play out good enough, I think. So I can't talk you off the ledge for that one, Paul. I'm with you. I think that it was a little weak.
I was gonna say, can't rub me out of it.
Yeah.
No, I can't rub you out of it.
I'll try, but I don't know if I can help.
But hold on. But the other thing I'll say is I also love the daughter being a good callback. But correct me if I'm wrong. Is that not the second time this season we've had the daughter pop up? Because it wasn't she also in when Egwene is dream hopping around and she goes and sees everybody. She goes and sees Nynaeve, who also has their daughter with her. So I love that they keep bringing that back too, because that's just like a cool callback, and I think it plays well into her character. So I agree. But yeah, go ahead, Kyle. Do your best.
No, I mean I might make it worse because you might get some rug burn out of this, but I'm. Like, I don't know if it went over my head, but I don't get why thinking of her daughter in that sense helped. I don't understand what was the like connection that made it click for her. Was it like the letting go, like leaving
what she has
like,
to
the fear
fight
behind?
for? It's like she wants to get it's what she wants to eventually achieve in her life, and if she dies here, she will never be able to see her daughter, I guess is how I took it.
She's fighting for that future. Yeah. That's how I took it too.
Okay. And I guess that then like makes her, because we've talked about the fact that like they explicitly told us that she is A, afraid of the power, and B, related to A, that like the control aspect of it, like her personality, like always wanting to have control. And I just don't know.
Yeah, that didn't pay off much, I guess.
It just, it made feel like I get the emotional impact that her thinking of, the potential daughter, the daughter that she actually ended up living with for months and months and maybe even years technically within that vision or third trial. It just, I don't know. It felt kind of like slapped together of like what would she think of probably her daughter. Okay. And I don't know how much narrative sense it made to me personally. I'm sure people can help me out either in the Discord or the YouTube comments, but I don't know. I think to me, it felt very underwhelming, all of it. I don't know how much I enjoyed the Moses motif of it all. I don't know. I guess at some level, I'm glad that we can move forward with her story, because I really think if you think about it, even this season, like Alanna had a better season and more of an impact than Nynaeve did. And that's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Like Alanna is a B, potentially C tier character. Like Nynaeve is like she's there, she's in the squad, she's one of the people, and it just felt like they didn't really know what to do with her a ton. But hopefully now that we're through the block, the Leandrin stuff is over. Like I hope that Leandrin's saying, like, I'm glad my baby's dead now, like tells Nynaeve, like, okay, she's irredeemable. Like we don't need to worry about Leandrin being a person that can come back to the light. Like, we're
Mhm.
not maybe struggling so much with accessing the one power. So hopefully in the future seasons, Nynaeve can have, I would say, more of an impact. I just think it was tough this season and a half for her. And it's sad that I almost just feel more relieved than like entertained or like I enjoyed the way it all wrapped up. I'm just like glad it's over,
Yeah.
which
I got a
kind of
weird-
feels like a bummer. It was very like earned and emotional in the books. It was like, oh my God. Like, yeah, and I'm glad that Dave, you feel that way. I'm hopeful that a lot of people that watch the show agree with you and that are like, you know, they felt like the music and the moment and all of it like came together very well. And hopefully it's just a nice launching off point.
I will say, though, it did leave us more to be desired. The fact that they just get on the boat and just accept their defeat and head back, because to even
It was
go
awful.
into the question and the idea of how much control does Nynaeve have, it would have been great to at least see her catching Leandrin on the way out, exchange at least some sort of weaves for us to fully commit to the idea of, yes, okay, Nynaeve knows how to use her powers now. And even if she loses here, that's fine. We at least understand that she's willing to use them and can.
And Leandrin would know that this happened. I feel like
she would
I
feel
feel like
it.
she would be able to feel this like explosion of power.
It's like
probably
like a minute after she walks away. Like, she couldn't have been that far away.
It's also tough too because I really don't want to be like the Debbie Downer and like always bring up the books, but like Nynaeve is throwing fucking hands in the book at this point. Like, she's battling in the palace. And it just, I was hoping we'd get like her versus Leandrin, like we're saying, but we didn't get that. And they went more for like an emotional angle, which for me, I think was slightly less successful, but we'll just have to see how it goes in the future because that is the end of Nynaeve's story for season 3.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think I was really excited to see this palace and everything go down. And I feel like it almost could have been like a Perrin episode where they dedicated the whole 50 minutes to literally just this storyline. I get that there might have not been enough to do the whole thing, but it's just like as soon as Leandrin walks in, they open the gates and the guy's yelling at him like, you weren't invited in here. I wanted to learn this lore about everything behind this and everything like that. And Leandrin just kind of kills that bodyguard and then walks about, and that's about it. So it felt weird. It also didn't really set up this crew for the next season, just because like Swan obviously sent Elaine and Nynaeve out on this mission about the Black Aja. They're going to be a little upset when they hear the news, right? Because the tower is going to be a little bit different. So, and also Tom wasn't on the boat too. So I know he told, actually, I will drag that back. Tom told Elaine to go back to Andor about the court and everything like that.
She has a mission.
So that at least lines her up for what to do. So maybe they'll just tag along, but I don't know. It felt I think I was just a victim of my expectations for the finale of this storyline.
This is again that classic, like Luke said, Wheel of Time finale where if they just had like maybe 2 more episodes, and granted they're not perfect, so like they could probably fuck some things up in those 2 episodes for sure. But I agree. I like in the books, like it's a lot more like political, the storyline of like they're going on a lot of like recon missions and like getting a feel for like what's the political climate of the people and do they like the Panarch whose palace it is, and you know, who are the players in the city. And it would have been, and like it's like a mob, like a riot breaks out essentially, and that's all going on. And it would have been cool, I think, to flesh out the city, the palace, all that stuff more. I agree 100%. But we can only watch the show they give us. So it feels sad to end that on somewhat of a low note because I really liked the Elaine and Tom stuff, and the Matt and Min stuff definitely worked for me well.
Well, we're technically going to end on a cool piece here in Tanchico, right? We got to finish out the Leandrin Mogideon.
That's a good point. Yeah. So we have this final confrontation. Leandrin finally realizes that a Forsaken has just been jaunting around, spitting in her tea and eating her food for her for the past week, 2 weeks, whatever it ends up being. And Leandrin, I think, plays an interesting angle here. It's kind of smart the way that she does what she does. And again, it ends this open-ended, what's coming next, but definitely an interesting thing nonetheless.
so funny how she puts it as I need to know my competition, and Mogideon just scoffs and is just, you're no competition for me.
Yeah.
And it is just always cool to be reminded of that power level of, while yes, Mogideon is the weakest of the Forsaken, she could still seemingly have her way with Leandrin, and it just keeps emphasizing how strong they really are, and I love that. So, and yeah, Leandrin continuing to want to be her Forsaken, and she does admit that she would work under Mogideon as a weaker Forsaken, and she appears to have no problem with that, and as long as she just has the title of Forsaken. So we'll see.
Yeah, just another concept of a dark friend elevating to Forsaken is just so cool to me. I don't know why. I guess because just the Forsaken are just such big powers in my mind that seeing somebody get elevated to that level is just, I don't know. I guess I never thought it was possible. So the way that Leandrin's talking is crazy. You can be nameless alone or find other chosen weaker than you, like me. So that was really cool. I love that whole concept. So like Forsaken seem to be dropping a little bit, or less of threats than it used to be. So if they're going to, re-up, and some new dark friends are going to be Forsaken, the ones I think of right away are just Leandrin, Padan Fane. Anybody else, Dave? Those two, right? I would have said Child Vault. Oh, not really. He's just more a freak.
No, I think just those two, and then I guess we had those guesses earlier on who's the Black Aja in the tower still, but I don't know if they would be Forsaken potential.
Elida. Freaking Elida. Well, I don't know, because then she wasn't like,
fuck Elida.
I don't know.
Put
I'll
a
save
pin.
that. I'll save that.
Yeah, we're almost there. We're almost there.
I
Just wanted to
there is actually one other scene with Mogideon that happens, and it's like at the very end of the episode. I don't know if we can bring it up now, but Mogideon is like looking for something, and she has this concerned look on her face. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about. It's legitimately the very end of the episode. It's right before we get the shot of all of the Tanchico people on the boat. Like there is just a 2-second scene of Mogideon. I don't know if, Paul, you have any ideas of what she found, or if what she saw and what she was trying to do.
My guess was that was right when Rand was doing the storm, and we see everybody. We're going through the clips of our whole crew, and we see them seeing the storm come towards them. So I just
Is
assumed
that what that was?
Yeah, it was.
That was all his storm.
That's what I mean. They were doing it at the same time. So I think that was just a flex of him. We'll get to that point, I guess. But
like she was kind of feeling his power in that moment, is what you're saying a little bit.
That was my guess. Yeah.
Okay.
So the only thing I like, or not the only thing I like, what I'll just add to this piece is that I like that they re-emphasized the spider aspect of Mogideon. Like they literally had the tarantula in the scene. I thought it was hilarious when she just starts laughing in Leandrin's face in this scene. Like she's like, "Oh, who are you?" Whatever. It's just so funny because she's just been in every Tanchico scene in the background as the servant. So that's been good and really cool. But then the other thing I liked was I don't have the exact quote written down of what Mogideon ends up saying. Like she says, "I don't play well with others." Then Leandrin says the same. I thought it all just worked really well, and it sets up a good storyline for next season for her, because I was worried that there was a chance Mogideon was going down this episode. Like I thought there was a chance Nynaeve and Mogideon were going to have a fight, because if that was going to be her unblocking of the power, how crazy would be that she takes down a Forsaken or something like at that level. Even Leandrin would have been good for Nynaeve to take down for power level purposes, but this is almost like a kicking the can down the road. Like it will build to a really good moment if they get more seasons. So I'm okay with all of this. I just thought Mogideon she's a great presence. I feel like, am I wrong that they keep changing who the weakest Forsaken is? Like, was it not Samael? And then we're told sometimes it's like, is Samael the weakest guy? I know that was like a book knowledge thing, but I don't like how each Forsaken is getting thrown under the bus as, oh, like Lanfear's like, "You're too weak, Robin." They're all like, "You're weak," but it should be the opposite, should it not?
Well, I
don't know.
I think what the show is trying to do is saying that like Mogideon's the weakest, went for Samael because he's the next weakest, and then Robin would be after that. So that was kind of what it was.
Okay.
But I
think
no idea.
she's also throwing, yes. So Samael was definitely, to me, besides Mogideon, the weakest, because of the scene earlier this season where Lanfear looks at Samael, says, "She'll come for you first. You are the weakest." Here she's calling out Robin for being weak, and I think, while yes, we know that Robin is not weak because he could take Mogideon one-on-one, I think she's just trying to lay home just hit home the fact that they are not working together. If they were to just work together as a unified group, they would be so much stronger and they could just do whatever they want. And they're hurting themselves and they're weakening themselves by not working together. And that's why she's kind of offering to him in this moment, let's finally just work together so we have nothing to fear.
Okay.
So what you're trying to say is apes together strong?
Yes, definitely.
Second reference in 24 hours.
Okay. I want to say that is going to take us to the White Tower, right?
Yeah.
Tar Valon? Okay.
Ugh,
So
heartbreak.
we've danced slightly around this scene, but this is what opens this episode. We get this 10 years ago flashback. So we're seeing Elaida emerge from a red doorway of her own. And she mentions here that she visited the Aelfinn. So I only call that out because that is a very deliberate difference that Matt
why
saw
I
the
had it?
Aelfinn.
It's funny that I
And-
do specifically have it at the beginning for Elaida's. Like I have the 10 years ago bucket, and then I wrote it as Aelfinn, like Alefin, and then we get corrected with the eel. Okay, interesting.
Yes, they didn't really get into the difference, so I think maybe we leave it because I don't maybe want to get ahead of the show, but
Fair,
just
yeah.
wanted to note that it's very deliberate.
Because I
That
thought I
there
heard
was a-
Aelfinn at first. Yeah, that's what.
Yes.
Love this shit. Just so like just as it's I kind of already said, like the eelfin or the foxes, like whatever the eelfin are, different. It's
Mhm.
gonna be cool.
Yeah,
I really
this
want to
was-
spoil it because it
I
literally is
know.
mentioned in episode 1, but I won't say anything about it because I'll let maybe the show do it.
I
Go
know
back- go
exactly
back
what
and
you're
watch
talking
episode
about.
one.
Yeah.
Go back and watch episode 1.
Honestly, yeah, if you go back and watch episode 1 and then listen to our coverage, there's a hint in there.
You're talking about episode 1 of this season.
Episode 1 of season 3, yes.
Because I said something on the podcast and you got me. Yeah. So I know
Yeah.
exactly what you're talking about.
All right, I'm going back. I'm deep diving. But-
No spoilers, but a little, breadcrumb. And for all the first listeners, go back and listen to the whole season of our stuff, please.
I was talking about Elaida and her bracelet before when we first kind of met her and got her whole backstory. There was a scene where it was like in her at her vanity in her room where her hand is like shaking and she's looking and focusing at the bracelet. So after seeing what we've seen with Matt, assuming it's somewhat similar, she even says to the white sister here, I was promised the Amelin seat itself. So that could have been one of her needs, except the, catch of it was she doesn't get it for another 10 years. So that, that's the one price. I want to say the bracelet was another one of her wishes. And the catch is that it has a downside, which is leading to why it was shaking and stuff like that. I don't know what the bracelet does because she kind of comes out of the archway and it looks like she has like a key charm on her bracelet. And she is rubbing that later on in the courtroom scene. So what that does, I would just be throwing darts in the dark. So I have no idea. That's another thing I could talk about for 30 minutes. But the catch for that one could be something like every time you talk, your voice gets raspier. And that's the downside for that one.
That's not a downside, though. Her voice sounds great.
She got her
It
jobs
really-
probably.
It's
Yeah, it's very
iconic.
powerful.
Her voice is honestly iconic. You can hear it whenever she's voicing Arcane, right away. You recognize her.
Grayson.
Shout out the
yeah.
Expanse.
Yeah, well, she's not animated there, so you can tell who she is there.
Okay, so I guess to maybe.
Oh
wrap
wait,
this
actually,
part up,
speaking of
this
the
flashback
Expanse,
part-
that
What?
Paul, that comment. Who's this guy? What is the guy's name again?
Oh, Amos. Yeah, yeah.
Amos.
Paul,
We got Amos on our.
Paul got
screens
compared
here.
to a main character. Kind of, I
Oh.
can see it,
Amos.
but
I did not. I've looked up the guy online. I was like, the only way this is similar is if Paul like really grew out his beard. Maybe I could see it. I showed Alki, and Alki was like, I could see it. And I was like, you guys are delusional.
yeah.
Don't know who he is, but he sounds handsome to me. The last part of this flashback, I got you, Paul. I was rubbing you the wrong way, so I wanted to rub you the right way. But the last part of this flashback is we actually get to see the vote of how Swan became the Amerlin seat. Elida's like ready to go. She's like, all right, we got it, and I only bring this up because it gave me somewhat of an issue of like, why would Alviarin like break the like order of things, where the sitter literally, I'm sorry, the keeper of the hall literally says, okay, that is like the end of the Swan voting time. So now we move to the Elida voting time. And then she stands up and says Swan. And I was like, why? Just have her wait, right? Like, just do it earlier, but later in the Swan time. I just thought it was so weird the way that they did that.
Completely
I have
agree.
that written down exactly. I was like, I really dislike the pause by all the sisters standing, because she literally says, "Who votes for Elida?" and everybody else stands up, and it's like, you lost your moment to vote for Swan. Like, you can't just you can't just do that.
The Aja of like logic and wisdom. Like, I didn't understand that.
Yeah.
It felt odd to me, but I guess
Hated
yeah.
Maybe
It
it
is
had
what it
something
is.
to do with the Alfin promise, because again, like you said, Paul, I think it's very obvious that Elida was expecting to win here based on her deal with the Alfin that she had met, and she was very surprised to not see it come to fruition. So maybe there was some kind of compulsion play here that last second kind of kicked in and made the sisters, with the weaves, whatever. But yeah, definitely was bothered the hell out of me that they ended the Swan voting and then continued to vote Swan afterwards. It just felt so out of place. It was for dramatic effect, I get it, but it did not hit for me.
These
It just threw me out of it.
these scenes were only worth it for the Alfin hint.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Interesting point of the compulsion, though. Maybe she literally stood up and was like, I'm going to
mean,
say Elida, and then said Swan. But I think also it was maybe purposeful, too, that she saw the Alfin red doorway thing, and that maybe changed her mind.
Yeah.
Because she didn't really trust Elida at that point, because it's like, all right, I don't really like what you got going on.
Yeah, she just looks bad, right? But
Yeah.
I like that Elida also glimpsed up, saw Moraine and Swan looking at each other, and kind of had a like face. So maybe she put it together there and then used it as leverage, earlier this season. So cool.
I like the music. I think it's like Swan's theme, maybe. They're like the
OST, her OST.
Yeah, it's just like, it's good. It always adds a nice thing to the scene. So, okay, we can move on now to the present day. And this is a small scene, but I want to call it out because of getting maybe some opinions on Swan's tactical mind, maybe, of Lyanna, who is Swan's keeper. So she has the big staff that she always bangs. And she kind of confronts Swan here and is like, you're being too secretive. Like, you can't just say this is what we're doing and A, not tell us why, and then B, not let us all have a say. Like, you should put this to a vote in the hall about backing the Dragon Reborn, because then we can defend it, we can get people on our side. But the way you're doing it right now is just feeding Elida everyone else in the tower because they don't trust you. And Lyanna, political advisor, working, because she read the room pretty well, and Swan has a pretty big misstep here.
Yeah, Swan's literally like, hey, I picked you to be my keeper because you tell me if I'm doing something wrong. Am I doing something wrong? It's like Swan doesn't even know. So she kind of like, she wanted her Lyanna's opinion, which I respect. We also got, of course, Swan looking at her letters, which we assume were Moraine's in her chest there beforehand, just setting you up to knock you down with what happens in a bit.
Well, no, this is the part that was weird to me, in that she literally says to Lyanna, like, I want your opinion on things. But she completely disregards it, because the letters she's writing, I thought, were like, she wrote the letters to all of the world leaders. That's like, hey, the White Tower, we back Randolph Thor, the Dragon Reborn. And she didn't listen to Lyanna at all.
Yes, that is what happens, and it leads to her downfall. But the first letter that she had open was the same letter from earlier season. She puts in the box, and then she looks at the ter'angreal that she uses to meet with Moraine in Tyr. So, like, that's just a Moraine thing. I think we can leave it at that. But you're right. So what happens is Swan ends up without the backing of anybody else, which I guess she legally doesn't need yet. She writes a letter to all the leaders that the Dragon Reborn is going to be supported by the tower, right? And we can assume that goes out to everybody. You can assume Queen Morgase, Elaine's, everybody, everywhere we've been, the leaders are getting these letters. So that's going to throw a wrench into Elida's plan of how she does control, how she had damage control for like whatever she wants to do, because she clearly wants to cage the dragon, where Swan was trying to set the realm up to be ready to support the dragon.
Yeah, I mean, I was just like, oof. I mean, is it a calculated risk on her part that has positive impacts, even though she got a lot of negative impacts from it. We shall see. I just thought it was funny that she's like, yeah, you're my keeper so that you can tell me if I'm doing something wrong. And then it was like, as she's writing the letter to not do what Lyanna says to her, I just thought was kind of funny. But they do even give us the scene here, which presumably, I don't know if it's right after, is it a couple days after, but the tower is aware that Siuan has done this, and that essentially provides Elaida this perfect opportunity to initiate her plan to depose Siuan, because she's like, look at her, she's reckless with all of this power. She didn't ask anyone about this. So she almost is gifting what happens to her, Siuan this is, to Elaida at this point, which we can then move into. So there's kind of two big parts here. The first one is, I just have it as like, now that I'm looking at it, I wrote it as the deposition, but that's like an actual thing in like courts and law, and that isn't what's happening here. But she gets deposed here. So we have Elaida getting all dolled up. You know, we have the rumor of the sisters that have left the tower, which was a beautiful ploy by Elaida to get all of Siuan's most trusted advisors out of there. And then we have Elaida stilling Siuan Sanche.
Move over, Liandrin. New least favorite character has just come into play here, baby. Fuck Elaida. I hope this bitch gets the most. I hope she gets the Volta treatment. I want her to burn, baby. Burn this bitch. Get her off my fucking screen. I was pissed. I think what also is a shame for me is I feel like now that I guess I'm kind of maybe jumping the gun a little bit. I wish I had talked more highly of Siuan as a character more, because thinking now, knowing that she's not going to make any more appearances, maybe in the form of flashbacks, but I loved Siuan as a character, and my jaw was like on the floor when this was going on. So I understood that they were stilling her first here in this moment, and this was just crazy. The visuals were honestly so insane. How fast it happened, I think, usually would be a complaint, but I think that it worked well here in the sense that Elaida's trying to get her plan going, and she doesn't want Siuan to have any chance at saving herself. And by her just enacting this, throwing all this in Siuan's face that I'm now the Amyrlin, we just deposed you, you're out, we're going to still you for your acts of being considered a dark friend and hiding the Dragon Reborn's location. It felt it was so fast moving, but it really hit. And the way Siuan was, you know, her actress was, the look of just despair on her face as this was all unfolding on before her. I love the shots of how they get kind of pierced with arrows, and then the arrows are released, and all of the one power is basically removed from Siuan. It just all looked incredible, and it was really hitting me. I was feeling the effects here. I was getting very angry at Elaida here, and it's just a testament to how well the show is bringing out these emotions in me, especially for a scene like this.
I will just say that we can talk about all of it. Let's just include what happens at the end, because I agree, Dave, at this point, it's kind of just one big conversation. So
jump back in, Dave, but let me just say, just as a peek into the book perspectives, Elaida, I mean, Liandrin doesn't hold a candle to how much I hate Elaida in the book. So I am right there with you, dude. She is one of the most Ramsay Bolton Joffrey characters I've ever seen, and not for the reasons you think, but I think the actress is doing a great job. She's written that way to be frustrating and annoying. So yeah.
And so I'll take this one is going to be the most unfortunate of victory laps in my Wheel of Time days here. And because I did say, I forget what it was, maybe last season, that I specifically said Siuan had death vibes. So I was
season 1.
Yeah, season 1. So that's crazy that we're coming here now. And I mean, so she gets stilled. And so in my head, I'm like, okay, like maybe there's a chance she somehow gets back in touch with the one power. I know Moiraine's situation was different in that her one power is kind of being physically cut off by something, and Rand was able to unlock it, and here her powers are being completely removed. But because she wasn't killed right away, I was thinking, oh, you know what? There's hope for Siuan and Moiraine to have, a final conversation. And then we're getting right back into the next scene of her just covered in blood, completely being she was obviously being tortured for the information that she was withdrawing from the tower and Elaida. And she lays it all on the ground here. I mean, she says, the way she describes her love for Moiraine, I'm getting emotional now. I mean, she really brought everything in this scene. And who is Elaida's now side
Keeper.
person with
The-
this keeper. Yes.
The white sister. So that is Alviarin.
Yeah, she's number 2 too. She can fucking catch these hands too. Fuck that bitch. I mean, she just absolutely no mercy. Swan's spitting all these facts, and it feels like Elida for a second is kind of believing her and almost about to give in to what Swan's saying. Like she's making a lot of sense. Shit, and then yeah, that bitch just shuts her up real quick, but Swan keeps going, and then she gives her the final blow. Man, I was so upset, even though I knew this was kind of coming. Like I said, it was in season 1, we had those vibes, but I wish going back now, looking on our recordings, that I gassed up Swan more, because I really did love Swan as a character, especially this season. I mean, while she maybe didn't handle things in the tower as well as she should have, like we've kind of already been saying, she was an amazing character. The fact that her and Moraine had such like this great connection, it was never meant to be, but it can be, and maybe in another iteration of the wheel. This was a great part for the finale in terms of hitting an emotional note for me and really drawing me out of, my comfort zone.
Yeah. I agree with you. Now that Swan is gone, it's like, oh man, we really didn't appreciate when we did have her, because she's explaining to, the rest of the sisters that are there, if you stay here, you will burn with the tower you love. I will never burn, because I am Swan Sanche, daughter of the river water itself. And that was so hype when she just says, because when we first got introduced to her as the Amyrlin Seat, we were like, whoa, like this chick means business. It was like authoritative figure. So it was great to see her after being so contemplative these past, like this whole season and back and forth. It was cool to see her like kind of say like, I am Swan Sanche, and be confident again after she got stilled and right before she was beheaded. So crazy stuff. There's a lot going on here. Just to go back to the beginning of this, like when they hold the vote, like why did they need to get the sisters out of the hall? If they had 11 votes, they could have just had the votes. Like maybe, I know like Swan's keeper, Lyanna, tried to defend her. So maybe they were worried about other sisters.
It
Like
was a physical defense would have been the issue of having to deal with 10 other sisters, whatever, trying to actually protect Swan. So that's
okay.
my
That makes
headcanon,
sense. Yeah, because the one white sister shielded Lyanna while all the other ones linked with
Yes.
Elida. So that makes sense. But then the other part of it was like, can you even have a vote in the hall without the standing keeper? Like that was weird to me too. So I was like, you're just having a new speaker of the house come in, running the show and saying it's official. So I don't know. The whole thing, it was always like, it felt weird. I don't know why, but still cool. I mean, still made sense. And the emotional beats were definitely there. And Swan's speech at the end, after she's beat up, after she's bloodied, just originally I didn't like how intertwined it was with Moraine's actions at the same time, because it felt like you were just chopping up one story when, just give us the whole story and then move on to the next one. But I think in the end, it worked out so well with what she was saying, talking about the dragon, what Moraine was doing, defending the dragon and everything. So I think it ended up being really, really good. Oh, sorry. Last thing. Elida goes into the new office, takes down the mirror, and I kind of wish they didn't zoom in on it, because now I'm thinking, oh my God, key point, right? Like we're going to use that at one point. Are we going to go to Tyr to use that ter'angreal to sneak into the tower, because the tower is now overrun by Reds? That was my first thought. So
Yeah, I mean, this is wild.
Yeah.
It happened to Loyal last episode, and
No
it's
way.
happened to Swan Sanche.
Yes.
'cause
No
Swan
way.
Sanche does not
Dude.
die in the books.
crazy.
Wow,
So-
that is crazy. I would have
Yeah,
never guessed that.
So let me just say that from my memory, and I did all these audiobooks over the course of a year, whatever it was. The reason that I'm okay with them doing this is because, in my opinion, and book readers that are diehards, read it multiple times, will shit all over me for this, probably this opinion, but we're at a point where there was probably going to be 6 more books that go by before Swan becomes important. And I think they had to make a logistical decision here where, are we really going to bring Swan back in season 6 or 7 to have her moments, or are they going to write it for other characters? This blew my mind. I did not see this coming at all. I thought they were going to kill Moraine or something. Like I just did not know what was going to happen. But my jaw was on the floor when I saw her head hit the ground. I did not. I was so curious, and I'm very excited to hear your take on it, Kyle. Like, is this something that we can live with?
I mean, I guess at some level we have to. It's just so different that it's tough. This is like one of those things where like you have to divorce the source material from what we're seeing and try to think, from a perspective of, I guess, Sophie Okonedo is a fantastic, well-known, prestigious actress. I'm sure at some level she deserves to be paid a lot of money. And it's like, oh, do we keep her on the payroll moving forward for what you're saying? And I don't know. It's such a big change that it just feels wild. I don't think I had recovered even from the Loyal of it all. And I don't still think I haven't. So like for it to happen kind of again I don't know if I can give like a mature take on it. I think I'm very sad.
Let me go on record and just say that I said this to you guys off pod. I am not convinced that Loyal's not coming back, but Swan is not coming back. Like this is
there was
fine.
I was absolutely gonna say we saw that head completely separated from the body. There is no way. Yeah, Loyal was something
real quick. Balefire, kill Lyda and bring her back.
Well, that's actually crazy to hear because I feel like looking back and watching the episode twice and all of these episodes twice, it feels like they were prepping this up to happen. So to me, it's hard to believe that there's any other world where Swan actually ends up living through all this. So. From my perspective, then as a show watcher, I think that means that they've been doing a good job of keeping it consistent, I guess, in that regard. It's shocking. I honestly, last episode, I think Paul was in agreement that he knew right away that once Loyal went, that he kind of knew that this was going to be a change from the books. But this one to me felt very like this could have easily happened in the books, to be honest. And that's just, again, from my show only knowledge, it feels like this was natural.
The stilling does, but not the head rolling.
It happens in a much more,
she does get stilled though in this moment.
Yeah, like explicit, overt. It's like literally like a battle happens in the tower. Like there's warders against warders. Like it's like there's two factions that have split basically. The entire tower has been split. It's like all like the lead ups, very political. You're feeling the vibes changing and all of that stuff. And it is her and Lyanna getting stilled. And then it's actually, I guess I don't want to ruin anything that might happen, but like they end up getting kind of smuggled out of the tower.
Okay.
By people.
Like and then, Swan and Lyanna.
Yes, and they have they have a journey, and it definitely falls under it's way less important than what Rand's doing, what Perrin's doing, what Matt's doing. So at some level I can see like objectively neutral looking at the logistics of like, all right, we have all of these threads, how do we make them all work? What are candidates for getting dropped, getting merged? And I can see the logic in there. It's just like wild to me that Swan Sanche isn't going to be in the story anymore. Like her journey of like, because that's like really the best view we get into what it's like to be stilled. Like we are getting her like kind of POV, like we're feeling what she's feeling of like she can't feel the power anymore, and like the way that she picked herself up off the ground and is like, like I'm going to commit myself to this mission, this goal, like that's what's going to keep me alive, like I'm going to push, and like her determination throughout the books.
You say all that, and that just reminds me of Moraine, and that's why I get what you're also kind of saying, where we can take I can already see it that they're going to give a lot of Swan's character moments to Moraine, and it feels like that's probably where we're geared to.
Probably.
Yeah. Because it's the only one who would be able to be on the same level as her that we know of,
But Lyanna's still around, and she plays a huge part in Swan's story in the book. So like they could also do that,
I forgot. Yeah, Lyanna, and she did not get stilled, right? She was only shielded in that moment, and is maybe just a prisoner right now.
Yes.
Yeah, from what we saw, from what we've seen. So yeah, we record these on Tuesday nights. Episodes come out on Thursdays. I am very interested to see what people are saying about this, because this feels like fighting words to a lot of people, and in my opinion, rightly so. I don't necessarily feel that way about Swan Sanche as a character so much, but I'm even in the camp of like, whoa, like this feels like a whole. And even losing like Sophie Okonedo is a great actor. It's like tough. She plays role so well, all of the moments. And I loved the speech and the quotes, and it felt awesome. And it just kind of sucks that we won't get her again anymore.
No more fish references.
Yeah, well, Paul will pick up that slack for her.
Yeah. One a podcast going forward. Paul, you need to just casually throw it in.
All right, I will easily do that. Without a trout.
Does that count? Does that count?
That doesn't count. It's just, I don't think that counts.
That was amazing.
She's more in the metaphor simile kind of one. That was like more like a pun. She's not very punny.
Well, all right. That's a great point.
He'll work on it in the off season.
In the off season, yeah. Oh my God.
Right? Like you're gonna be as determined as the salmon swimming upstream for the first time in spring.
There you go.
As you head towards this new reality. Yeah, there you go. Something like that. That's Swan Sanche coded. But damn, rip to the Amyrlin. And there's a new one. And that's actually a perfect way to wrap this up, is to give you both again. Season 1. I have it written down here. Paul started this and Dave kind of latched on. So I will say it that way. But Paul had Mutiny, New Amyrlin seat. You were feeling the vibes.
Wow.
And that something was going to happen in the tower. So
that's pretty cool.
You nailed that one.
Nice.
Said Leandrin was wrong. Half point for Elaida?
You did say your actual order of events was Leandrin will become Amyrlin, and then Elaine will become the Amyrlin with Egwene as her keeper. So you were right in the color of the Aja. You couldn't have possibly known about Elaida, but you were, let's say, a quarter, maybe.
Sounds about right.
Good. And then Dave's was pretty much similar. You said Aes Sedai Civil War / Mutiny with a new Amyrlin.
Okay.
So
I was technically more right. I'm more right than Paul, because you were way too specific, Paul. You got to keep them like Min's visions. They got to be open to interpretation, you know.
Okay, I guess that's the end of Tar Valon and the White Tower for season 3. Am I wrong, Dave?
Yep. No, you're good.
All right, so we move now into the Aiel Waste, and I think the first thing we could talk about here is just Moiraine and Samael, because the other ones combine a little bit better after this. Honestly, maybe we can just do. We want to do all of Samael.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah,
right. Just get it all the way. So we have the Moiraine talking to him. She's learned how to shield, which was an interesting revelation we get here, and then we have Moghedien finding him after the Moiraine conversation, which was quite interesting. And then we've kind of talked a little bit about the Lanfear and Robin of it all, so we might not necessarily go into that one as much, but at least those first two, we haven't talked about.
I love the little backstory that we get for Samael. While his time was very short-lived on screen, I mean, Moiraine gives some little bits here that he was one of the greatest generals of the Age of Legend. I love also the fact that basically up until that Age of Legend, you know, seemed to be a time of peace. There was no war really ever. And I love how he quoted himself as being, I reinvented the art of war. I thought that was just so sick and
so cool.
I know. I wish we could get more of it. You know, maybe we get a spin-off series of just Forsaken, and that would be just amazing. And all their backstories, I would eat that up. Absolutely. And yeah, that Lews Therin gave him his scar, and that he's always worn it as a sign of, I'm going to, you know, this is a reminder of Lews Therin and what he did to me. It easily could have been healed, it sounded like, but he just wanted to wear it like a mark of revenge. For this couple sentences, it made me appreciate Samael very much. I honestly didn't expect the outcome by the end of episode of what happens, but this was cool. I thought this interaction was really tough. And again, Moiraine just power scaling herself. She was able to shield a Forsaken. I think that's pretty badass. And even Robin was kind of surprised by it. He says, you know, you really think you could shield one of the Forsaken? And she confidently answers yes. So great to know that Moiraine has that in her back pocket.
My headcanon was that she used this Karnan to like help tie off a
okay.
shield, because like didn't she just learn about tying off like the end of season 2? So where the hell did she possibly learn this forbidden technique?
I would assume him being knocked out maybe helps.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I'll take that. I thought he was dead, honestly, from what Rand did to him. So I was surprised to even see him here. But yeah, exactly what Dave said. Just bringing up the past, the fact that Luce gave him that scar was great. But yeah, I mean, I was kind of excited he was alive, but I shouldn't have been, because he was quickly gone.
Well, okay, so what Moraine wanted to drive home was Rand still needs a freaking teacher who's touched Sidene, because the whole Logain failed, like that attempt failed, right? He was kind of already too crazy and things happened that distracted. So this is the perfect situation, and something very similar happens in the books, but not Samael and not like this. Like one of the Forsaken that probably won't make it into the show. Something similar happens around this time. I don't know what they're going to do with his future, because like we've said in the past, like do Forsaken actually stay dead? Like are they going to get we don't know how the show's really going to teach us or kind of go forward with all this stuff. But my freaking God, dude, Moghedien maybe gave us the coolest visual the entire episode, and there were some beautiful landscape shots. I was just as jaw on the floor as when Swan died, as when we saw Samael later, with the weaves of his blood just ripped out of him and frozen. That is one of the coolest things I've ever seen in fantasy. That shot, I think, I just did not know what was going to happen, because when she shows up initially, it's amazing that it worked for two reasons in the favor of the dark, where one, Moghedien is quite literally trying to learn how to kill a Forsaken because they're impossible to kill. So I don't know if that was her saying that she actually did it or whatever. That aside, it also really hurts the side of the light that Rand just lost a potential teacher right there. So I don't know if that was in Moghedien's head or she was just trying to play Forsaken politics, but this was such a major important scene that it hurts the dragon side so badly. But it was so freaking
when
cool.
Rand and Lanfear meet in the dream world, does she even admit that Samael would have been a good teacher for him or something like that? Like she brings it up in the very beginning.
I honestly want to say it's the opposite. She says, I think that like he would have been a shit teacher, but it was really the only option that they had.
I couldn't hear again. The subtitle thing was really hurting there, but she definitely mentions him in that moment.
She wanted him to go there and then end up having to teach Rand.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. She does confirm later on. And then the next note
set him up for failure. She set Samael up for failure.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, they just straight up took a dump on his character. He just gets tossed around in this season. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it. The female Forsaken seem to be almost borderline OP. At this point, we got a Samael being kind of the guys through seasons 1 and 2, and now this season it really seems like Lanfear and Moghedien are like they run literally everything, and the guys are just kind of standing around waiting for orders from them, essentially, which is, I think, an interesting way to do it. I'm curious to see what the future lies, because again, we were told that there are 8 of them, right? And we've seen 3 guys. We've gotten 2 girls. And then they name dropped 2 other girls.
And we haven't.
And then there's the one that we don't know.
Yeah. But so now we're down to maybe 1 guy, potentially 2.
And we know that guy is next on Moghedien's list too, of people Forsaken that Moghedien's going to kill. Lanfear literally says to Robin, "You're next." So
yeah. So I mean, is the 8th going to be a girl? Is it a guy? I don't know. I understand that they had to do a lot of consolidation. I'm just getting a little nervous about what they're doing with the Forsaken, which is a bad feeling for me. I think Moghedien and Lanfear are killing it. It just feels like they're killing it so much at the expense of the others. So I hope we get more balance maybe moving forward. Because Samael plays, I would say, a somewhat minor-ish role. The way that he goes out, I think, is very interesting. I'm sad that we're not going to get it the way that it happens. Although I read a quote recently that Robert Jordan was like, he literally, like, Samael was a loser, so I gave him a loser's death. in the books, kind of, and like he definitely gets a loser's death here. So I think the spirit of it is there.
And Jimmy just read the part in the books where Samael dies, and he said, "That's it. Like that's it. It was built up, so it was purposely done like that." Which is why I don't think I have any reservations about what they did here. Also, who knows how much they're changing? Because remember, there's 13 in the books, so there's storylines that are going to have to get mushed together. But also, who knows about resurrections? Who knows about like what they'll change here? So there's a lot that can still go right with this. I still just at face value loved it because of what Moghedien did.
Yeah, and to go into what you were saying earlier too, Luke, about what does it mean for a Forsaken to die? So we know that in season 2, when Ishii dies, to me, it felt like that for him was him getting completely removed from the wheel, because his ultimate goal was that he didn't want to be reborn anymore. He wanted like permanent death, and it felt like he had gotten that in season 2. So for my headcanon right now is I believe that Ishii is completely removed from the wheel, but I don't know about Samael specifically. I think there is a chance that he, yes, could get respawned unless Moghedien has access to some, soul level weaves of being able to completely remove someone from the weave. But I'm with you. That is still one thing that's in the back of my head of how are they going to handle Forsaken death going,
Yeah.
All right.
I think the whole image of Samael's body with the blood leaves frozen above him was just, I'm coming out of this season with that being one of the images, because it looked so good.
Sure.
Moghedien is so incredible. She comes in, she licks her lips, and she's like, all right, shall we play? And then just starts ripping it out. She is so creepy. She's phenomenal. To lean into like the spider aspect of it, like, does she have Leandrin trapped in her web? Is she just using her? Or is Leandrin actually like making good moves and good deals? They're a duo that I am very, very interested to watch next season.
I also actually before we got the confirmation that Samael became a spider web, basically, I was thinking that she was trying to turn him into a gray man. I was like, that would be crazy if Moghedien had the ability to turn Forsaken into gray man under her control. It would just, I thought that would have been crazy, but well, for now, dead.
Okay. So I think we can move now into what really ends up being kind of the beginning of this storyline. So we have this kind of Lanfear powwow, in that it starts off with Rand still really shaken about what happened at the end of episode 6. He is trying to fulfill his toe to Alcera. Very sad. I like how visibly shaken he is and the way that he's reacting, but he recovers fairly quickly, because we get into the next part of this, which is basically they're setting up this confrontation with Lanfear. They want to bait her out, essentially. So they're in the dream world. Rand breaks up with her. Egwene Matumbo shows up, and we get this crazy kind of the squatting up. So there was a lot of, I think, to like here too. It was very interesting.
I'll just say this was probably the first time I don't know how I figured this out, but this episode I found out that toe is spelled T''OH. I legitimately thought it was just like you're giving someone toe as in like your toe, TOE. So that was like mind blowing for me. But yeah, it was really emotional watching Rand, fulfill his toe, knowing that he was responsible for, the death of I already forget her name as usual, but it was really touching to see. And I think Yosha is just an incredible actor, man. I mean, again, I'm just going to keep praising him, and by the end of this episode, I'll be praising him, but he's special, man. I think they cast the exact right person as Rand al'Thor, man. I love seeing him on screen, whether he is super depressed or just absolutely bodying Forsaken. He is the best.
As long as you can admit you'll never like him more than me, then we can be on the same team.
I don't know. Yeah, fine. Just because you read the books, I'll give that to you, and you have the full image of Rand.
Rand is the GOAT.
Yeah. This opening scene where he is fidgety and he's obviously thinking about, how he just killed this little girl. It just felt very out of place, in the sense that the next time we see him, he's so confident, and he's talking to Lanfear, and he's, just that whole conversation, the vibe of it, it's just his attitude and like emotional state was just so different from what we saw, what we opened with, and I don't want more of him being sad and all this stuff. And I like that they showed it. Didn't say like it did affect him. It just felt, again, I'm going to use the term whiplash, to see him look like he can't even turn around without dropping things, to I'm going to go, full Forsaken. So I felt weird, but that being said, this was awesome. Didn't realize at all that like Egwene was actually going to be a part of it. She says like the wise ones are waiting, but when she popped up and just boops her out of it, that was great. But just what Dave was saying, Rand is so good, and just this whole, I finally see you for who you really are. But what does he say?
You're petty, cruel, jealous,
Yeah. Calls her a monster.
and a monster.
And she's like, you don't really mean that, and you can tell that she is just heartbroken. But he's dropping the hammer, and the way she almost like morphs into whatever that form is. It was like the first time we ever saw her.
Mhm.
She was released by Ishii, and she was like that blood lady,
Yeah.
like just covered. She looked like a creature. This was almost reminiscent of that. So I don't know if this is like her true form or if that's just what she can turn into, but it was creepy. We don't fully get it, but it's a little taste of what she's still got something left in the tank.
Yeah, I think that I wanted a little bit more fire out of Rand, but it was purposely toned down to give Egwene the ability to come in and do something about it too. I think that was like it was almost like a recon conversation too, because as soon as it happened, they all just like, oh my God, like, let's go. And I felt it happened really fast. Also, what did I just miss? Why they depowered down so confidently? Like, oh, she's not actually coming. Is it just because she didn't just teleport there in the first 2 minutes that they just said, okay, like we got to move on? Or did I miss a line?
Funnily enough, it was kind of Lan. Lan sheaths his sword first, and they're like, okay.
Yeah, I didn't understand why, like, because she could have just teleported in a minute later. What's the difference? Insane that Rand was even willing to grab the power, and you saw the dark taint on him. Like, he was risking his madness, and they just depower down like that, which I
think
I felt a little awkward about it.
I think it was because I think you're right that they were expecting her, especially Rand, knowing Lanfear so well. He physically was expecting her to just show up in that moment, angry, ready to fight them. And I think when she didn't legitimately immediately appear and it was a few seconds go by, I think he was like, okay, something's off. She should have been here by now. And that's kind of why they react that way. But that's how I took it.
Okay. I mean, that's fine. Like, I don't care that much about it, but it was the moment where I was like, it was so cool. And I had such a weird feeling at the same time, because like Land swords out, Rand is embracing the source. Like, it was just a cool moment, but then it like depowered. But you do see right away that Lanfear infiltrates the Aiel, and she's like in disguise. I think it's the Shido specifically. And or maybe not at this point, because she does go and call her debt from Alindra. So this is more similar to the stuff she's doing in the book at this time, where she's kind of like in disguise, if I'm remembering that right, Kyle, like in the Aiel waste. So I like that it's kind of a callback or Easter egg to the books.
Yeah, I love that Avengers Assembles moment where they're all just like, Avienda's fire spears are definitely so fucking badass. I absolutely love those.
Well, it's so funny, and Paul, you might get a kick out of this, where it's like we have Avienda, Egwene, Moraine, Bear can all channel. So they're all sitting there wielding the power. We have Rand wielding the power. We have Lan with his power wrought sword. Then it's just Boulain with a little dagger.
Yeah, she whips out the little dagger.
Yeah, it's like, all right, let's get it. Like, I'm gonna help.
And it's funny too, because I feel like she had this look on her face, but she's like, "Am I supposed to be here?" Like, she kind of double takes everything, and she's like, "I don't know if I'm supposed to be here," and she's just holding this dagger.
Yeah, do everybody a favor. Go sit in the corner, would you? Get out of here.
You're not going to give her props for standing up to Lanfear with not the power?
I don't know. I'm still salty about how she treated Moraine.
I mean, that's totally fair. I'm curious of. So, Paul, you kind of had this take that you thought Lanfear maybe had an ability to come back to the light. It seems now, do you feel comfortable kind of shutting the door on that thought?
Yeah, I don't see how there's any reconciliation between it seems like, and this is going into Lanfear's conversation with Robin, or they're looking at Samael's body. It seemed like the only thing that was kind of separating her from joining some of the other Forsakens was she wanted the dragon alive because she loved him. She just told Robin, I am fully ready to kill the dragon. And therefore, now they're going to team up and do all this other stuff. So I don't think there is any light in there.
It was the
How do
same
we
thing
feel
with
about
Ishii,
this?
right? Because like they were the ones that were actually friends with Lews Therin, and they keep playing on that theme. And I think it's a very cool dynamic to throw in there. But now that Rand went a little too far, I almost am of the mindset where he should have faked it a little bit longer just to keep her not crazy. I don't know, but
He was fed up.
I mean, how do
with
we
the
feel that
shit.
she's full villain now? I mean, we don't even have the benefit of she's maybe
Yeah.
working with Moraine a little bit. She's kind of helping us along the way. She tried to provide
Back
us with
on
a teacher,
Team
but now
Egwene, baby. Back on Team Egwene.
she's fully now anti. They have, let's call it a clean split, if you want to say.
Yeah. I mean, just to go back to the dream a little bit, Rand is like, oh, like you keep talking about how you want to, kill the Dark One so you can be freed from your dark oaths, but maybe you actually want his power all to yourself. And she's like, why can't I have both? So now I'm like, she is not only not even close to the light, she is in the deep depth dark if she's trying to become the Dark One and steal that power. So yeah, she went so quickly from 3 episodes to, hey, maybe she'll turn and maybe her and Rand actually will end up together, to, wow, she needs to die like real quick.
every love story
Olympic.
has their bumps, man. Every love story.
She is an Olympic level manipulator. I like how she tries to slide in the line of like, stop making it seem like life's so simple, like we're one thing or another. And it's like, hey, you're kind of one thing.
And she does say she was trying to actually train or make Egwene stronger, which is just such bullshit. Like
Yeah.
that's just
Yeah.
Yeah, total lie.
Not the truth, Lanfear, and you know it. I'm happy about it though. I'm liking just full gung ho. I hate you, Lanfear. Like that's where she's actually at her best.
Yeah, and it's great because I think we've been saying it for a while now that things were kind of shifting in the light's favor of, Ishii got taken down, the Forsaken still haven't worked together to accomplish anything. They're still arguing within themselves, and there was feeling like we have this, and Rand's getting stronger. He's officially, declaring himself as the Kara Khan. He's getting in touch with the One Power. So it did feel like the light was kind of approaching that side of, we are definitely in like on the side of victory, but now with especially Lanfear being the strongest of the Forsaken, going back, finally finding her roots back in the dark side. I think this is leading up to a great battle, and Egwene and Lanfear are back on the table, baby.
We're just warming up, man. I'm telling you, think about where we are in the book series. We're not even a third of the way done. Like we're warming up still. So the chess pieces are really still being kind of outlined in this season. So yeah.
Dave, did you just say Egwene and Lanfear are a couple?
No, I'm saying in terms of them. I'm predicting their clash still. I'm still predicting.
Oh, okay. I was like, wow, that is a curveball. That would be amazing if you called that one. But, so like the last thing Moraine said was like, don't assume you're the only thing she wants. If we underestimate her, we die. Get Ruark, we leave now. And initially I was like, where the hell was Ruark this whole time? We needed him to fight. And then I was like, oh, dude, he's got many wives he's got to take care of. Like, he's an important guy.
Busy guy. Guy. All right. So I think we're now on this journey to Al-Khair Dal. I think that we can kind of take this in 2 ways. So I have kind of part 1 of this journey is maybe somewhat of the immediate part, and where we have Ruark explaining to Rand what's going to happen. We have Egwene wondering with Aviendha what's going to happen. And then we have Lan and Moraine kind of talking about what she thinks is her imminent death. There's not a ton here because I think it all gets touched on kind of later, but I will say I'll maybe open it up for conversation with something that doesn't necessarily get touched on later, and that's the Egwene and Aviendha of it all. So Aviendha is coming at all of this from the perspective of, we don't have a choice really. Like Rand is the Karkarn, he is the way he is, and the Aiel will follow because we literally have to. It's it's been written, it is known. But she says to Egwene, that doesn't have to be you. Your future you can choose. Is he worthy of your strength? And I'm kind of curious of what you guys thought about that.
Yeah, I definitely saw that more as Rand and Egwene not being on the same paths. Like their future, unfortunately, doesn't seem like it's going to end up together.
What are you saying? Yeah, for Dave.
I know, I agree. I know I was just fist bumping earlier about that, but no, I was actually going to kind of say the same things as Paul here, so I'll let him keep going with that.
Yeah, I mean, just between this and the fact that Avienda's like, dude, he laid with a Forsaken and is supposed to lead us into madness. Like, are you sure you want to be with this guy?
Yeah.
It just kind of makes sense. And we already talked about it before. All of her ambitions, she is just on such like a higher like bar. Her bare minimum is so much higher than everybody else's. It just feels like her and Rand unfortunately can't be a thing. So
yeah, I'm complete agreement. I know celebrating Egwene's chance with Rand now that Lanfear is out of the picture, but yeah, these words were really kind of reinforcing to me that they probably aren't going to end up together, and it does pain me to say that, but we'll see. But that's really the big takeaway for me, is that there is definitely this is the highest I've questioned Rand and Egwene's future without a doubt so far.
So, Dave, I have a question for you, because right after that we got Lan and Moraine talking, and Lan is saying, "Does Lanfear kill you here?" And Moraine's like, "Yeah, sometimes, but other places too. Could be today, could be a year from now, but I think it's today." Were you nervous? Because I was incredibly nervous.
I saw the blue outfit and I was like, that blue outfit is just screaming the rings again of how she was getting sliced in the desert. That outfit was so familiar. If I was Moraine, I'd just avoid those outfits that I saw myself in. Just, like the it's like we're in the desert, she's wearing blue, and it's like, yeah, maybe not today on this outfit, we'll put that away for another time. But I was definitely worried here. I was definitely feeling the tension here of what Moraine was going to get into. I'm actually kind of shocked that it happened this fast after the events of episode 4. I thought that was because I think when episode 4 happened and we had our discussion on it, I think I was talking about, this could be like seasons away where Moraine and Lanfear have this showdown. And and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing that we're only 4 episodes out and we're getting this showdown, because like Moraine said, I think there are other chances for them to have more showdowns in the future potentially. And we know, I'll save some of the other conversations for those scenes, but yes, for sure.
And they make it a point that Melindra walking right in front of them hears this conversation, which kind of plays into her actions later on. So just want to point that out.
It's a great point too with the outfit. And then I'm thinking they didn't really come with any bags. Like, where did she maybe stumbled upon that in the marketplace and was like, it's a sign. Maybe. Like, I gotta buy it. I gotta wear it. Like, I gotta wear it to this confrontation. I've seen it. That's actually kind of funny to think about. Mm-hmm. I think that kind of sums up all of it. I just want to give the shout out to the Rhuarc and Rand of it all. Every time they interact, I smile.
Yeah.
I just like the two of them together. Rand having this kind of mentorish father figure. He has it kind of with Lan, he has it kind of with Rhuarc. It's just a nice dynamic that I think the show is better for. So, and Rhuarc, he's making Rhuarc very nervous. Rhuarc is going into Alcair-Dal with tons of anxiety because Rand's like, I don't care, bro. I'm letting everybody know that you guys are oath breakers. And Rhuarc's like, oh my God, this is going to go so bad. So Rand just doesn't give a fuck at this point. Okay, so we kind of have a part 2 of the pregame, the warm up here. This one's a little bit more detailed though. It's again there's 3 aspects here. So we have Lanfear coming to the Shido and falsely branding Couladin. We have Melindra speaking with Lan, which we kind of just talked about slightly. And then we have Rand and Moraine. I would say let's save Rand and Moraine for the end. So let's talk about those first 2 first, because they're kind of smaller and they kind of relate slightly as well. Mm-hmm. No one cares.
The Shido leader woman, I guess she was a wisdom
Savannah.
or a wise one.
Savannah.
Wise one, I should say.
She is not. No.
Oh, she's not. Okay.
No.
She looked amazing either way. The Shido, you talked about it. You're like, make their outfits black. Make sure you know they're the bad guys, but they do look pretty good. And I thought there was going to be more to the line of like no honor and shedding blood here. We'll kind of get to that because they're talking about like, hey, why don't we just kill him and all this other stuff. But Lanfear ends up. I literally have in my note, Lanfear gives Bitch Boy his henna tattoo.
That's pretty funny.
That's good. That is good.
I mean, I just love that Lanfear is in that haircut too. She got the slick back here. She had the long hair in the dream. She's got the slick back. She just rolls in the black Shido outfit and is like, "Wise one, leave!" Like she just commands the room. They don't even know who she is, but they listen to her. Like she
looks good as an Aiel.
Yeah. And the line of, it's been a long time since anyone accused me of being a maiden. Like she's just like her on this I'm evil and I don't care anymore vibe is just going to be the best. And it was just like hitting at 100 in this interaction.
Yes, 100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like this.
Dave, you have a comment on the Couladin thing? I'll take us into the Melindra if not.
No, go ahead and take us into Melindra then.
I don't know if this is a hot take or not. I'm really kind of looking at Kyle for this one, but I think that this scene with Melindra and her breaking her dark oaths made every scene she got of this show worth it. I thought that this was a great idea because we've talked about it. Like, what is the penalty for like you can't break an oath that you take as an oath as an Aes Sedai, but like, what's the penalty for breaking your dark oaths? Because that's a whole different like set of rules, and you see it here, and I think it's worth it because it really emphasizes how much the people of Malkair like cared about it, and like how important to her it was. More important to her life than her life was to preserve Lan, because he is the last remnant of the kingdom. So I thought that this was really well done. I was really not loving her as a character, or I thought that it was kind of wasted screen time, but I think it's a good payoff here because it's going to go a long way for Lan. And in the end, if the show finishes, this was like a good moment for it. And I thought it was awesome. Like seeing the visual of just her getting overtaken by the darkness and actually dying. Now we know that there are actual stakes associated with taking the dark oaths. Like Liandrin can't just like turn her back on the dark ones now, on the dark one now. So like there is true penalties. So I thought it was all worth it, especially because Lan hasn't gotten a ton this season. So at least they had this moment, because I definitely want more Lan in the future.
I totally thought you were leading up to say that you thought all of this was going to be, I thought you were leading it up to say that you hated all of this, because I was going to counter and be like, oh, I thought this was amazing for her character. I love this. The fact that, we get the twist that she is revealed to be a dark friend technically. And, you're thinking to yourself, shit, like was not really ready for this. And what is the debt that she owes Lanfear? And then the fact that she purposely gets herself caught by Lan when sneaking up on him, and then just telling him straight up that my dark oaths mean nothing to me as long as you're okay, was just so fucking cool for her character. Yeah. And I can't wait to see how Lan kind of grows and learns from this, just now more so than ever understanding what Malkair means to people and his role in the world. Because everyone knows I'm a huge Lan guy, so anything that provides more depth and character and potential growth for my boy here is going to be a plus for me. So I thought this scene was really well done, and to everything you said, Luke, agreed. Love how they emphasize the fact that breaking the dark oaths means something. It's not something that's just easily escapable, and it means the end permanently.
And anytime you get a dark friend reveal, it's always a cool moment in Wheel Time.
Yeah, and this is the first time we've seen a dark friend not be fully committed to, committed to the cause of being, for the dark.
Yeah, agree with everything you guys said for the exact same reason. Sets the stakes of the oaths and explains the people of Malkair how much they love their kingdom and want it to come back to flourish. I think the line where Melindra says, like, I swore dark oaths for Malkair so the golden crane would fly again, but it led me here to fulfill them would be to destroy Malkair forever. I think that literally is like a perfect position for her to show how much she's willing to give up for, you know, her kingdom and that stuff. And nobody else would break the Dark Oath otherwise, right? So I thought a lot of this was just great and really, really helped the world building.
Yeah, I think just a smart change to make, especially from the Lan angle, and that Lan doesn't really have a ton to do. So it's nice to get him involved and, like you're saying, raise the stakes. This is, I think, is our first Aiel dark friend that we've seen too. So, you know, they're even at this, although we know that she's technically from the wetlands, you know, there are Aiel dark friend. I just want to shout out like what her story is in the books, only because like her and Matt are banging. You know, so it's just
the redheaded woman. He gets his
and Matt isn't in Ruidian in the show, so she can't have done that. So the way to adjust, I thought they did super well. It's just funny that that's what happens in the books.
That is funny.
You know, she like is getting close to Matt because she's a dark friend and she has orders and she's gonna try to kill him. And Matt's like, "Yeah, baby, like, let's go. Your boy's getting it." And it just makes me.
Do you know I blew the horn of a leer?
So that was just, I think, a very smart change in the way that they make it. The one, again, to be the Debbie Downer potential thing that made me a little sad was that she, I think, is the first person in the show to use the line, "Death is lighter than a feather, duty heavier than a mountain." And that's like iconic stuff that like Lan kind of imparts into Rand. So it was a little interesting to hear it come from her, because Lan gives Rand, I think in season 2, before the meeting with Swan, like, you know, like the number one rule of being a man is that whatever comes, like, face it on your feet. And then this line, the "death is lighter than a feather, duty heavier than a mountain," is like the other one of those like insane phrases that Lan gives to Rand that like carries Rand throughout the entire series and like is really kind of this like mental foundation that kind of pushes him in a lot of ways. And so I hope that we maybe, if like Mullinger is kind of reminding him of it and then he says it to Rand at some point. It was just interesting that she, I think, that was the first time it's been said in the whole series. I could totally be wrong though and just be forgetting. So yeah, I think all that stuff definitely worked though. And I think now we can really get into this Rand and Moiraine conversation, which very interesting. I don't know if you guys are shocked at the level of kind of honesty, the depth of the relationship that was going on
tension that I was feeling. I mean,
you're throwing away Lanfear and Rand, you're throwing away Egwene and Rand. Is it going to be Moiraine and Rand?
Moiraine is recently single, so
she will be.
Not right now.
She will be single. Yeah, she will be single. But I'm the whole time. Yes, okay, this was like just a phenomenal conversation. I love the maturity between both of them. That Rand is like, "You have been protecting me pretty much this whole time," and Moraine's like, "Yeah, I have been," and Rand's like, "You've also been working with Lanfear," and she's like, "Yeah, I've also been doing that." I just love that everything's open on the table here. But man, episode 4 was really coming to my mind with Rand and Moiraine banging. And I'm like, these two are just, they're feeling each other right now. And I don't know.
Are you serious?
You weren't getting that vibe,
sexual
bro?
tension radar is just always set to 100. And whenever a man interacts with a woman, it seems like it just starts beeping.
It doesn't help that episode 4 showed us an outcome where it did actually happen. So that's, and now I'm also, I guess, you know, coming to terms with the idea that Rand and Egwene are never going to be together. So I'm like trying to put the dots elsewhere. And this is where my mind is going. Again, that's the beauty of episode 4, just kind of showing here, and that it's really paying off. But personally, I'm just going to say it. I felt some tension, some tension here between the two.
I'm cracking up because like I've seen this scene. I'm like, wow, it's really just showing how Rand has matured and how Moiraine are like, they are just coming to an understanding. And Dave's like, yeah, these guys are fucking, like, these guys are going. So I was just not on the same page. But we were on the same page yet, and in the stance that this scene really was phenomenal. Like, I just want to quote the whole thing. I wrote it down. I'm not going to, but there's so many good lines. Just Moiraine coming out of the blue and being like, hey, by the way, you were right. Coming here was the right decision. You could take down the Forsaken with this army. They're crazy strong. You know, you're like, what? Moiraine is just admitting that she was wrong. She even says, like, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it sooner. It was the right thing to do. And you're like, thrown off guard.
Mhm.
And then you get Rand just ready to attack Moraine with you with Lanfear. You're trying to separate me from Egwene and Lanfear. You've been working with her. You knew what you were doing. You were hoping it would tear us apart, and it worked. Thank you, And we're like, what? We're so ready
Well,
for
her
Rand.
response is, I know it worked. It was so
Yeah.
good.
It worked.
It was
It
so
worked.
good.
It was great, and I was not ready for Rand to just be like, yeah, thank you for being there to make those tough decisions. I finally realized that you're on my side. You want me to succeed. You want me to win this last battle. And even Moraine to that jumps back with, don't get confused. I've been holding a knife to your throat this whole time. I was
Mhm.
ready to kill you in a heartbeat's notice. I didn't want you at the final battle unless I knew for sure that you would win it for the light. And Rand's like, yeah, exactly. Nice. And it's just so weird because, last season, Rand would have been like, you're crazy, old lady, and walked away and rolled his eyes. But they know so much now, right? And they've been through so much now. So I really, really, really love this scene.
This was an all-time scene for me for the show where I like the character development between these two is so just highlighted. And when you just think back to all the other conversations they've ever had, and ever since episode 4, that was so life-changing, and you're feeling it now. They are reevaluating everything. The fact that Rand is saying, I don't care about just living. I agree. I want to be killed before I get to the last battle if I'm going to be evil. That's essentially what he's saying. He's very scared about the madness associated with the male side of the power. And it's hard to show that in the TV show, but in the books, that's almost every single other thought he's having all the time. He's always freaking out. He's like, he's worried and paranoid about going mad because he doesn't want to hurt the people that he loves. And I just think that this conversation lifted a lot of that weight and made me feel so much better about the direction of these characters, because that is to a T. Rand wants to avoid this craziness. That's why when he asked earlier, I think it was episode 5, when he asked Moraine, do I kill you? Do I kill Egwene? Do I kill everybody? And she goes, sometimes. He wants to do anything in his power to avoid that, even more than getting to the last battle alive. So I thought this scene was beautiful. I was really, really into just how they grow, how they've been growing as characters. And I was of the mindset that they were going to kill Moraine this episode and not Swan. So I thought this was a goodbye. I literally wrote in my notes, that was a perfect end for these two characters, but I'm happy that Moraine's not dead and they're going to get to continue to grow and build on things. We're in the part of the books where we don't know what they're going to do and what they're going to change, especially after some big kills. So they could do whatever they want. And I just love these two's dynamic. And it's it's going to be something that they should keep marketing and keep centering the Rand storyline around whenever Moraine's around, because it's so freaking good and compelling and real and awesome. I love everything about it.
We say this every time, but Rosamund Pike is just incredible. And
Yeah.
even here, when she got done saying all that, and Rand says, thank you. Her look of shock, her eyebrows just go up. She's like, what? Genuine surprise. And she has scenes later where she absolutely kills it. But and then right here, she starts to cry, and she's saying, I won't be here forever. But it was incredible. And I love the way she said that, I'm not going to stand behind you. You're going to get the Aiel to follow you without an Aes Sedai doing their little tricks behind you. And I'm going to protect you from Lanfear or die trying. Good luck, Rand al'Thor. Definitely Luke. I thought she was dying. I thought that was it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's an important step for Rand to take, to realize that Moraine actually at some level has his best interests in heart. That him navigating who to trust, who wants to use him, and all of those things is a big part. It's a very big step for him. And I agree that the level of emotion that this scene was able to convey was very good and very important, especially like we mentioned, leading into what at the time was an ambiguous end of this episode and season. But as we can kind of get into it, because now that we've watched it and we know what happens. So at Al-Qair Dal, we have two things going on here. So one is happening kind of in the bowl at the bottom of the big dune, and where we have Couladin versus Rand trying to convince all of the Aiel attendants that they are the actual Karkarn against each other. And then while all that's happening, we have Moraine and Lan fighting for their life in the background against Lanfear. I don't know if we want to talk about those things separately, if we want to just leave everything completely out in the open. It's really, I think, whatever, if someone has something they really want to talk about, we can start there, and then we'll just fill it all in as we go.
I'll start off with just saying I think, I mean, just gonna gush over Yoshi again. Just how he is introducing himself. He comes down. He's taking off the jacket. He's like, "I'm here to tell you what you are." Oathbreakers. I'm just like, fuck yeah. And they're all booing him. And of course they should be, but I'm getting fucking hype. And it's just like, this guy just knows how to get me fucking going. And I just, anytime Rand is using the one power as well with the taint showing is literally just sex for my eyes. I think it's just amazing. It's just,
I was thinking about cutting what you were just saying as a little promotional clip for when I tweet the episode out, but you just kept putting in another F-bomb and then that description, and I'm like, okay, I gotta find something else.
There's no way that's making it. That's only in the director's cut there. But man, how can Rand not be the best character right now in the show with his just from the acting alone, the moments that he's had? He is built obviously to be the MC, and I fucking love him. And the other comment I'll make in regards to at least the Moraine and Lanfear battle is I shout out my boy Lan. Glad that he came in and got a little shot in on Lanfear. I can give some props because it felt like he hadn't been doing much. The only time I've really praised him this season was when him and Rand had those early on scenes of him getting to teach Rand the way of the sword. I always loved those scenes, but I'm glad to see my boy finally come into action and lay down some lumber on Lanfear with that blade.
Well, speaking of that scene, do you remember episode 4 where we're talking about Moraine in the rings and what she sees, and we're trying to like piece it together? And you were like, yeah, it looks like, she's using a katana or something. And I was like, dude, that is totally Lan's sword that Lanfear is using to kill Moraine. And you just absolutely nailed it. That was like a team.
We were talking too. I think we were trying to figure out like how is Lan's sword going to end up in, Lanfear's hands. But here we see it. And the payoff again, episode 4 already is just paying off dividends. And I fucking love it.
It's the best. The whole fight between Lanfear and Moraine was great. She was just getting her ass kicked, and was she just like pretending and waiting for Lan to make his move? I didn't really understand what was going on there. I guess she just kind of got a surge and grabbed the Sakarnan and whatever. But when there was the two of them against Lanfear, and Lanfear's got to block the fireballs from her right and Lan swing from her left, I thought that looked great. And obviously the wounds that the sword inflicted were not, they were because it was the sword, was not being able to be healed, which was going in line. I want to say it's going in line with Ishii because that was another Heronmark blade, right? Or is this?
No, I think we have this issue every time that we've talked about.
Last time.
So Lan's sword is not Heron marked, right?
That's a great question. I feel like I should know the answer.
The only Heron mark blade that I'm aware of is the one that Rand's father Tam had, and I think Lan's is just different. I don't know.
Isn't Rand's sword the one that burned up?
Yeah, it's not there anymore.
The important thing is that Lan's sword was made using the one power.
Okay.
Which is
think of it like Valyrian steel. Maybe?
Some of those swords would have a Heron mark. Some of them, I would say, not necessarily. So there is kind of like a squares and rectangles thing going on there for sure.
But either way, like we said, it was great. We know that Lanfear is injured. She stumbled away into a portal, so we can't actually see the extent of it, but gonna assume she is still alive. So that was all great. And then from the Rand aspect of things, Rand is obviously talking about, the prophecy and what does it say? Like a wetlander, or he goes through his whole spiel.
Born of the blood, but not raised by the blood.
Yeah, and where did
wetlander will come from the east or whatever and declare himself.
Where did your wise ones send you from, like where I'm from, to the Two Rivers to find me? It's just all so good. But when he goes like, turn your backs on me and you will die. I shall spill the blood who call themselves Aiel. Like, There was a little bit more after that. I couldn't really fully understand what he was saying, but I was like, is he going to kill the Shido? And I thought he was going to, and I kind of wanted him to, because it's such a, not that like I want him to become a killer, but like that would be so amazing to see him fulfill the prophecy in that way, because we're all thinking, oh, the Aiel are going to fight for him and die, but meanwhile he is coming in announcing that he is the Caracarn by one, showing the tattoos, explaining everything he just did, and then fulfilling that part of the prophecy where he kills those of the Aiel that won't follow him. I thought that's where it was going. I thought he was going to brew the storm to literally wipe out half of them. But then he didn't.
I'm absolutely with you. I mean, these prophecies are so hard to determine whether you should take them literally or, you know, figuratively, and what does it mean to actually break. And I'm watching him conjure this storm, and I'm with you. I'm thinking he's just going to start smiting half the Aiel here, and whoever comes out are going to understand that he is the Caracan and they need to follow him. The twist was definitely, to me, that he only brings rain down, and he doesn't necessarily, I think, break them here. I don't know if that is yet to happen. Go ahead.
No, I mean, they kind of talked about it here, where Rhuarc even says, if you tell them the truth of their oath breaking and their past, you will break our people, like our culture. So that's what I was taking it as, where Rand was essentially deconstructing their entire worldview and breaking them down to then lead them out. But you're right, like there's a full revolt that's kind of going on right now, and we're gonna have to see how that really plays out. But I think that's what it was trying to get at. We'll see how more explicit they talk about that part of it, though.
I thought it was kind of funny the way they handled the reaction to things. It felt like
so funny.
95% of people knew what side to go to, and then there was like 3 or 4 stragglers that were like, "Oh, I think I'm on the wrong side," and like they went over to the other side. It just, for me, it was generally looked goofy, and it kind of almost took me out of the emotional moment of it, which is a little bit unfortunate. I couldn't help but notice that like there were some people that kind of like shuffled through and were like, let me get to that other side.
You mentioned that for the last episode, for the Perrin episode with the Trollocs. I didn't see it there, but this time I absolutely saw some people kind of like double take and just be like, oh shit, maybe I should have been over here, you know?
Yeah.
So we talked about this. We were just together for dinner this weekend, and Kyle brought this up, but I totally agree with you that this whole scene single-handedly gets docked a point because of the existence of Dune 2. And
this
just
could have been his I am Paul Muad'Dib Atreides moment. Yeah.
And that's not to say that this scene was bad, because I loved it, and I think Rand was incredible, and the turn your backs on me and I'll kill you kind of thing was, all of it was hitting. But comparing it to Lisan al-Gaib giving the best speech of all time, like in one of my favorite movies ever, it's tough to not compare the one-to-one. But that aside, the rest of this, I just thought it was so good. Especially, he's dropping the Age of Legends info. He's talking about the Way of the Leaf. He's calling them oath breakers. He's laying it all out there, and Couladin has no idea what to do. So I really enjoyed it. I thought that it might not have been the most epic scene or the most epic part of the entire season, but it was good enough. I don't think it was nearly as mishandled as the season 1 and the season 2 finale big moments. This was like on a different tier of like quality compared to that stuff. The Lanfear and the Moraine fight, I don't have much to add from what you guys said, but the one thing I'll call out that's probably really hard to notice is when Lanfear started turning up, like she was going hard mode, you could see the things happening to her eyes, which is the second time that's happened. We didn't call that out yet. So keep that in the back of your head. I'll let you guys talk about that if you want. I don't really have anything else to add about the Lanfear's part of it, except that if they killed her, they would have lost me as a fan. So good job of her getting out in that teleport. I was a little worried, I'll be honest. So, but that aside, back to the Rand thing. The last thing I want to call out is after the rain moment, when he's bringing down the rain. I don't know how much you guys paid attention to this, but Egwene is the only one that doesn't bow to him, right? And then she says, like, let go, like, release the power. And he just like stares her right in the face, and he just does not. He gets consumed by just allowing this saidin just to overflow with him. And I think that that's going to be a really interesting moment that we can look back on of how his story is going to progress specifically in the next season. So I loved everything about that. I think it queued us up nice.
It directly parallels to what Rand and Lanfear were talking about in their dream, where Lanfear was saying, loose Theron Telemon, you made the whole world bow besides me. I was the only one that didn't bow. And that's why you dumped me. And now they're in the midst of a breakup and she's the only one that doesn't bow. So I don't know, but I agree. Just the whole Rand, let go, please. And he just doesn't flinch whatsoever. It was just so cold. And, we are worried, is Rand going to go that way? We don't want him to, but we've seen so many visions of him kind of going that way. It's like, are you going to do that to our MC? But one more thing in this Lanfear fight, she was wearing that damn sling ring this whole time. And they didn't even reference it once. So I'm just like, I'm losing hope that it means anything at this point. And I'm going to look back at it and be like, dude, you wouldn't shut up talking about that thing that never got brought up.
I will just say, because it'll probably, I guess, be our last chance of the episode breakdowns for this season to talk about it. The visual effects have just been unbelievable. I mean, the Moiraine using the Sicarnan, the fire shots, the shields, the like Moiraine kind of pushing the katana through the shield, and it's like heating up, and then Rand channeling, Lanfear using like the black like tar channeling, like it just looks fantastic, and it just has added such a great element throughout this whole season that it's just been so pleasant. I want to say it wasn't necessarily bad in the opening seasons, but it's just like so clearly taken a step up, and it just lets the show, I feel like, rise to a higher potential, and that the visual effects on it.
Season 4 right now. By the time I get off this podcast, I better look on Twitter and see greenlit season 4.
We're coming up on like 2.5 hours here, but I just want to get this out so quick because I know we talked about it. I just want to gush about it a little bit more. The reveal of the Oathbreakers was one of the best like writing devices I have ever seen. It was incredible. Like, just to go back to season 4 or episode 4 and how much that set up this moment was incredible, because first of all, you have Ruidian, you have to go through Ruidian to see the truths, but you can't talk to any of the other chiefs about it. But how the hell are you going to know if you went through it, like if you faked it? And what the breaking that rule of not talking about it solidifies in the other chiefs' minds that yes, this is the Karakharn. But it's like it's like the self-fulfilling prophecy of it. I just thought it was genuinely one of the slickest little ways of one reveal basically shattering the whole world and the thousands of years that came before it, all following this one rule for this one dragon to break that rule. And that is just the avalanche. That is the snowball that turns into an avalanche. I loved it. I loved it.
And you're starting to see why episode 4 was so special to me and Kyle, because that's like one little tiny butterfly effect of that episode that's so important, and there are going to be a million more. So like, it's just, you're right. Like, I'm happy that you as a show watcher can really appreciate that, because that's going to be an episode after every season. You could probably watch it and like, you'll have some sort of, just sense of just how important it was. But yeah.
He will come from the west, beyond the spine of the world. He will tie us together with bonds we cannot break, and he will destroy us. And that's what he does right here in the scene. I love how Cooldin's like, we can't talk about what happened there, dude. I'm a holy man. I would never talk about what happened there. And then he's like, all right, if everyone wants to go kill wetlanders, follow me. And he leaves. It was like, okay. But I mean, honestly, sure. Well played. Well played. I think
fantastic.
The end of this episode, I think with like the Rand and the Egwene and all that stuff, this is, I think, the best I've felt after a season.
This was easily the best season finale, even from my perspective of a show-only watcher. I mean, this was the best finale. This was the best season. And this season had some of the best episodes. How can they not possibly set this up for season 4? I mean, this was just everything, at least from my perspective, this was nearly a flawless season of television.
In the same vein of setting up for season 4, we kind of mentioned it, but we didn't talk about it enough. But like, there was that Lanfear Ravin scene looking at the dead body, and then she goes on to say that you should get Kalendor to him.
Oh,
and
yeah,
then so like that to me seems like a nice cue up for the dark side's path to see what they're going to do against Rand and his Aiel now. So
Yeah. And we're talking about, the Aiel heading over the Dragon Wall. So like, are we going to leave the Waste? So there's a lot of great
Kalendor
things.
has been spoken of a lot by a lot of different people in this episode. I gotta assume that's where we're heading next. So
All right, I guess MVP, LVP.
yes, sir. Let's
All
do
right.
it.
I don't want to go first.
I mean,
Someone else
I'll go first, right?
Yeah, go ahead, Will.
You're due. You got it.
Oh man, I don't even know. I said I'll go first, but then I didn't think about it at all, and I regret it so much. All right, I'm going to do MVP. I just got to give it to Rand, man. I mean, he's that whole speech and the reveal. I just gushed about it. It was so good. I loved it. And then for LVP, I'm going to go we talked about her name, the Aes Sedai and the Black Aja tried to use the balefire, sucked at it, and then Elaine kills her 2 seconds afterwards. Like, get good, sister.
well, she's burned out of the wheel, so she can't get good anymore.
Yeah. That was great. I'll follow it up as the other show watcher. I will say MVP gotta be Elaine. She is the best. Elaine is sorry, Kyle. She's my girl now. And then LVP, I will go with Elaida. That's just so easy because I legitimately cannot stand her presence anymore. I need this comeuppance so badly.
I can't believe I thought of my LVP before I thought of Elaida as LVP.
I'm glad you didn't because I wanted to be able to just shit talk Elaida so much more.
That is so. Elaine officially takes the lead that can't be taken from her. So she leads in the MVP clubhouse. She has 4 MVPs. Yeah. So half of the episode, she's got an MVP vote. Dave, you are 2 of them. Luke and Paul are the other. So I am the only person on the podcast that didn't give Elaine a single MVP
I'm the
vote.
true Elaine believer.
And Dave, that's Elaida's second LVP, and you are both of them. So
yes.
Dave has you're nothing if not consistent at that point.
Kyle, you can go next. I'll go last.
Okay. Somewhat unexpected. I will say my MVP is going to be, I'll say McGideon. I think objectively, from if you want to take it, people accomplishing what they've set out to do within this episode, it's hard to argue that anyone did better than her in that. So I'll take her as my MVP. And then LVP, I'll take Lanfear. Tough showing from her. Yeah. She loses maybe it's a positive that she lost the teacher of Samael, but she doesn't kill Moraine. She gets broken up with. She doesn't really handle it totally well, although I'm excited to see this
gash in her neck.
Unhinged version of her. Yes, she has a gash in her neck, so she's definitely on the back foot. All of her plans have essentially been foiled.
Okay, I will take Moraine because I think combined with the emotional impact and growth that she got from Swan's death with that amazing conversation with Rand, like she is on a good path, and I really enjoy her character. I know she didn't get a lot this season, but like the moments that she got in episode 4 and then this finale really are going to pay off. I think she deserves an MVP. And my LVP is going to be Samael because, as Robert Jordan says it best, he's bitch made. So yeah, we'll end with Samael taking the exit as the only Forsaken to be killed this season.
Okay, so that'll be our last episodic MVP LVP. This is probably a good chance to plug. So like Paul mentioned, this is a 2.5-hour episode. We are, I think, going to record another episode that's more of like a full season type of conversation, so we'll talk about, we teased it last episode of what our season 2 top 4 characters were. So that'll be an episode where we can talk about maybe season MVPs and LVPs. We'll talk about what our current character list looks like. We'll talk about our favorite episode, our favorite moment maybe, and then maybe we can even get in a conversation there of like what storylines we're looking forward to going into season 4, and then maybe we can do even like a Paul and Dave's theories where they are, kind of do a review of where we're at with those things heading into a new season. So more of like a full season celebration almost episode.
And maybe one
Instead of-
more surprise episode potentially brewing as well to go on top of that. So even though this is the finale of Wheel of Time, I think you guys have a couple more episodes from us, at least in terms of Wheel of Time content you guys should be looking forward to.
Okay, so for the final episode breakdown, I'm just gonna quote the quote that they end the season with because it's a great one. It's straight from the prophecies of the dragon. But for the land is one with the dragon reborn, and he is one with the land. Soul of fire, heart of stone. In pride he conquers, forcing the proud to yield. He calls upon the mountains to yield, and the seas to give way, and the very skies to bow. Pray that the heart of stone remembers tears, and the soul of fire love. Means nothing to us, but sounds
Poetic.
hard. Yeah, it sounds poetic. That's actually the prologue from book 7, so I think that's an interesting choice to end this season with. I'm not entirely sure what they're thinking there. Maybe someone smarter than me will throw a YouTube comment out there that makes me see the
think
vision.
It lined up very well with the very skies to bow line with him opening up the skies. So maybe that was it.
All right, we shall see. Okay, so that is going to do it for this episode on Binge Empire. If you like what you heard, the best way to support us is always going to be thumbs up / liking on YouTube, subscribing if you're really a big supporter, and then also the comments too. I mean, hey, we probably got some things wrong. We might have an opinion you don't like. You might think about something differently. We just want to hear what your thoughts were about the episode. It's always fun to read them and to kind of, see the conversations that are happening within the comments. And then the best way to keep in touch with all of the coverage that we do. So I mentioned always at the top of the episode how Binge Empire is Bingetown TV's sci-fi and fantasy podcast. Bingetown TV is kind of our little network of shows that we have. So it's the 4 of us here, and then there's 3 more members of Bingetown. So we have this podcast, Binge Empire, which will be covering The Last of Us season 2, actually going on now for the next whatever that ends up being 2 months. But we also have a handful of other podcasts. So The Core is where we cover everything Apple TV. So we've done Silo, Severance, The Studio. We're also doing Your Friends and Neighbors right now, in addition to Studio. And then Dark and Twisted, we just covered Yellow Jackets. We've had some episodes on The White Lotus on that one as well. And then Final Form is a podcast of ours that does anime and animation. So the last shows we did there were Solo Leveling and Invincible. And then last but not least, Unreal is our reality television podcast. So we've done things on Survivor. We've covered seasons of The Traitors US on that as well. So we are constantly coming out with content. We do a lot more than just Wheel of Time. So the best way to get in touch with all of that and then stay within the community is going to be joining the Discord. We've mentioned it a couple of times through here. Shout out to all the people that are always in the Discord contributing to the conversation. But B is just going to be checking out those other feeds. So as a recap, that's just The Core, Dark and Twisted, Final Form, and Unreal. And we will be covering something you are watching. I can almost guarantee it. And for the last time, this episode, like we mentioned, not for the last time in Wheel of Time, we are Binge Empire. And thank you so much for listening.
Season 4, woo!